Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace. Happy Friday. I hope you guys are doing well. We are live, so say hello in the chat. Give me a thumbs up if you can see me. It is Friday, September 27th, 2024, and I'm sure you guys know why we're here today. We're doing live astrology on the channel. We are talking all about this upcoming solar eclipse in Libra. I hope you guys are enjoying your weekend so far. Give you a little bit of time just to kind of like let people kind of settle into the chat. But do click subscribe. Click the bell button below if you're new to my channel. I'm a Western astrologer. I like to work with tarot as well as the Sabian symbols to understand what's going on in the cosmos. You can find me here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. And this is a highly anticipated video because we have a lot of people that want readings. So the good news is we're doing readings. The bad news is, well, readings are closed now. So if you are now watching this live, pays to be prepared. Just so you guys know, we always post this stuff early on the community tab. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Usually the day before we'll post a link. That way you can sign up early. These ones are so busy. They are closed before we even start. So some of you guys are like, I want to get a reading. I'm sorry. There's only one of me. We're going to be here for not just a good time, but a long time tonight. So with that being said, you're not going to see a QR code, but usually you do see one. Hopefully I can catch you guys next week for tarot, or I'll be back in 2 weeks for more astrology. But that's okay. If you want to get a reading, you still have questions about the eclipse, you can book a emailed report from me. So head over to my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com. Those usually go out within about 7 to 10 business days of the day that you select. So yeah, I'm so happy to answer your guys' questions. Before we get going, so many of you guys have already seen my readings before. You know that we have a ton of people that come for the astrology readings. I give you the laundry list of people who have already paid, who made their donation for their reading. If you hear your name, that means I got your reading. And anybody who sends anything beyond my last person, I will be sending you a refund. And as a reminder, we're live on the 27th. So please don't send any money. If it's Saturday or Sunday, I'm no longer live. But even if you're not getting a reading, it's a fun place to hang out. You can learn astrology. You can hear other people's tea. It's always a good time. So I just want to say a big thank you to all of my members and subscribers and anybody who is new. It's nice to see you guys. And I know I'm going to have a lot of sad faces in the chat who are like, I didn't get the reading. Sorry. All right. So first of all, I want to know, somebody sent a payment. The very first person, I'm going to shame you. The very first person who sent a payment did not put any information. So I don't know who this is, but your PayPal is m.ysa. So if you can tell me who you are and let me know what your question is, that would be super helpful so I can give you your reading. You were the first of the queue of the people who paid. So if you guys are members, well, you guys get your readings first. You don't have to wait for everybody else. So my level 3 people, you guys are the best. Thank you for supporting me. I appreciate it. If you guys like my content, I have long form content that I put out several days a week. I don't just tell you what's going on in the world. I help you plan your life and you learn astrology at the same time. I'm a full-time content creator, so you guys can support me by donating to the channel, joining my memberships, and level 3 is going to get a reading with me once a month, so it's a pretty good deal. And we've got people like Marsha, Dorothy, Lisa, Carolina, Diana, and Victoria. So all of you guys are going to be the first people who are going to get your reading. Everybody after that is going to be in the queue. So this is who I have that has paid. I have Marissa, Holly, Adriana, SF, aka Anonymous, Goldie, Stacy, Kahita. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? I hope so. We have Iris, Persephone, Paula, Danielle, Sahad, Sage Moon, Susan, and Jaren. Okay, so that's who I've got. And I appreciate your guys' patience. You will hear me say a couple of names in advance, and that's just me letting you know, hey, you're on deck. Basically, you're getting ready to get your reading. So if you hear your name, please pay attention. And guess what? After the video, you can come back and you can watch your reading. So if you can't stay for like 2 hours and wait for your reading, no worries. You'll see the split of the screen and you'll see your name and the chart. So if you've paid for a reading, you'll get your reading. You can come back and watch us at a later time, or you can also leave, come back and leave a comment and let me know how that plays out for you, okay? And also, guys, one other thing, I still have a webinar on the eclipses. So I put together a 4-hour webinar that was talking both about the Pisces eclipse and also the solar eclipse in Libra. There's eclipse videos that are going to be covered on Sunday. I already have an eclipse video, so there's tons of information about this eclipse on my channel if you guys want to take a look. All right, thanks. So we're going to start with Marsha, and then Dorothy, Lisa, and Carolina. You guys are on deck. I'm going to say hi to everybody in the chat. I know Dorothy's been here for a little while. Sahad's here, Holly's here, Lisa's here, Carolina, Stacy. Who else do we have? What's up, Salty Mama? Victoria's here. What's up, Iris? David's in the chat. Kaleidoscope. Who else do we have? Epi Solaris. What's going on? Who else do we have? There's so many people, but I see you guys. And thank you for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. Happy Friday. Happy almost eclipse. And we're going to start with Marsha. Marsha sent me a little love note. So I will read that. Let's see, where is it? Where is it? There we go. What's up, Marsha? She says, hey girl, hey. Candace, I'd like to cash in on my reading tonight, please. For some direction, I need to schedule a surgery, so finding a more favorable date would be awesome. Maybe keep private that. Okay, so anesthesia. Got it. I would love to take on the good, bad, or ugly coming the next couple of months. Is my group business going to take off? And an impulse, I applied for a dream assisting metaphysical creator needing an executive coordinator. Will my application make the cut? So my question is, do you want to know about surgery? Do you want to know general? Do you want to know more about the job? Which one is most important for me to look at? Off the top of my head, just looking at your transits, I would say the solar eclipse coming in right here. And it is going to kind of cover a lot of the stuff you're asking, but unfortunately I'm having to limit. Everybody gets one question. So Libra is about relationships, right? And the solar eclipse is prompting new opportunities for relationships. So the eclipse itself is in your 8th house, and the 8th house deals with joint finances, resources, opportunities to make money through other people in some kind of collaboration. Also, the 8th house is the house that's tied to surgery. So I kind of feel like the eclipse coming in is planting a seed, basically setting the stage for, okay, you know, yes, there's an opportunity to collaborate and make money, but also surgical things. Especially considering this eclipse is going to be conjunct Uranus, which is your chart ruler. And when the eclipse comes in your 8th house, hitting Uranus, it's about your body, and it's trining your ascendant. So I really, I can't recommend, I know you're not asking that, but I can't recommend anybody, if you guys are just listening for the useless file, we don't do eclipses and surgeries. Like we don't want to mix those things. Any elective surgeries, anything cosmetic, any major life-changing things, we generally don't do that. But this is an eclipse that's triggering making those decisions. So my advice is look for the opportunities to connect and collaborate with other people over the 6 months, because this is planting a seed where you can work with other people and make more money. But this is also about getting ready to plan something revolving around surgery. Look at the ruler of the eclipse, Venus. Venus is in Scorpio, which is about surgical things. And it's in a sign that deals with, you know, surgery, right? Scorpio is about surgery. It's very close to your Venus and your Mars. And at the same time, we're starting to see Venus coming into a trine with Mars, which is coming into your 6th house of health. So I'll give you a couple dates that seem more beneficial. And this is soon, so you may not be able to do it this quick, but Moon and Venus coming together on top of your natal Venus, trine Mars around October 5th is not a bad date. You could also do something like when Venus is coming into a trine with Neptune. So you could do something around October 14th. Then you could do something when, let's see, Moon and Mars are coming together, trining your natal Jupiter around the 23rd of October. And then you're going to have a new moon in Scorpio. And then I personally feel like surgery when the moon is in Scorpio is pretty good, or when the moon is making an aspect, you know, to your 8th house Lord. And you have both of those things around November the 1st. So that's another opportunity there. And then you're gonna, well, Mars is in opposition to Pluto, so you need to make sure that you have adequate rest and downtime if you're gonna be doing that at the beginning of November. And then another time can be like when planets are going through Aquarius and they're trining your 8th house. So like when Venus comes into conjunction with Pluto and then it trines the South Node around December 3rd, although Mars is retrograde, so not my favorite. So I would say if you have to wait that long, you can, but Mars is going to be retrograde really until like February, so that's going to set you back a little bit of time. Mars will go retrograde and it will go into a trine with Venus. I still don't like doing surgeries when Mars is retrograde. And then we could do something like when the moon is coming into conjunction with, let's see, Saturn, right around the end of February. This is going to be around the 28th. Mars is direct, trining Saturn and the moon, and it's a new moon. And then Venus is your ruler, and it's getting ready to retrograde over Chiron. So then you're looking at the end of February, right? So those would be the times that I think would be the most prominent. I just want to remind everybody, and I know I sound like a broken record, but both of these eclipses are going to get activated in the spring. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. So there's a lot of things that are happening now that are planting seeds or wrapping things up that we're not really going to be dealing with until closer to like, you know, March, April of 2025. So if you do have to put it off until then, that's fine. You're still going to see Mars in a trine with Saturn. So there will be like a Moon Mars trine Saturn around March 9th. And then it looks like Mars will trine Saturn for the 3rd time, and that's going to happen right around March 29th through the beginning of April. Okay, so those are all of the dates basically that would be best to do anything surgical. And in the background, think about how a solar eclipse in the 8th house is inspiring you to create change in your relationships, in your joint finances. It's trying to get you to be afraid, to move away from fear of change in relationships and how you could potentially be merging with other people. But Saturn is your chart ruler. So the thing to think about is like Saturn right now is still trining your Venus. It's still kind of in a loose trine to Mars. So you have some very good aspects. The only thing you're going to watch for that's going to be happening later in the year is going to be when Saturn squares Jupiter. And that will be bringing up kind of like expansion and contraction, especially revolving around your financial situation and, you know, things that are expanding or changing within the home. So that's going to be the kind of one transit that's really going to impact you. And you were probably feeling that in August. So it's just going to be kind of like a return to whatever those situations were revolving around what you spend money on or how you're expanding your home, and maybe being a little bit more conservative when it comes to expanding the home space. Okay? Hopefully that's helpful for you. Marsha giving you lots of good advice about all of the different dates that could work best for your health stuff. Happy eclipse. All right, so we got Dorothy. Let's pull up Dorothy here. And there we go. And let me see what Dorothy asked me. I know she sent me I think it was a synastry. Oh, there you are. Hey, Marsha. Okay. Exactly. Got it. Thank you, Candace. Was scheduled the last eclipse. Said hell no. Okay. Yeah, if you can get it done during those times, that would be best. You're welcome. All right, let's pull up Dorothy's stuff. Oh, PayPal. You are such a pain in my behind. Takes forever. Sorry, guys. All right, so we've got Dorothy's transits up, and let's see what Dorothy asked me. All right, so we got person A and person B. Thanks for the tip, Dorothy. Did we find out who Marissa is? Did we find that person? All right, so let's look at person B. Let's see. Where did I put, what did I put that under? There we go. All right, so you just let me, oh, okay, it's Marissa. All right. I will make a note of that. All right, I got your email, Marissa, so don't worry, I got you. Okay, going back to Dorothy. So we've got some synastry here. Any particular questions, or you just want me to tell you what I think, Dorothy? So we've got you April 16th, 85 at 8:23 a.m. in Ohio. So you're Gemini rising, Sun in Aries, and Moon in Pisces. And then we've got person B, let me flip this around, who's a Sag rising. Looks like they have a Sun in Leo and a Moon in Taurus. So we're looking at synastry. So this is where we put the two charts on top of each other and we see how the two charts kind of interact with each other. So the first place my eyes go is looking at the angular houses, which there's definitely stuff happening in all four places. I look at conjunctions. And I also look and see if there's any trines. And I see all of these things, basically. So there's stuff kind of activated everywhere. In relationships, you know, the ascendant is that kind of attraction point. So is the ascendant and the descendant. So having somebody south node along your ascendant does mean that they help you when it comes to making changes or kind of embracing like that Gemini rising of communication, travel, you know, learning. And then the descendant, I like synastry with descendant north node. I think that that's helping embrace more of the themes of your Sagittarius type of relationships. And notice their north node is right on top of your natal Uranus, which means it's not going to be boring, right? So they may activate this fact that that you have unusual or unexpected or out of the box or just different types of relationships. Uranus for you is about your status. So this could mean that it's somebody who comes in that radically changes or transforms the way that you look at relationships. And their north node trines your sun. Now, the other thing that I look at is aspects between Venus and Mars. I want to see if Venus and Mars see each other. So it looks like they have Venus in Cancer, and they have a sextile to your Mars. So Venus and Mars sextiling each other is a Venusian aspect. So that's good in terms of intimacy, kind of chemistry. And then their Mars looks like it trines your north node. It's about a 10-degree trine, but it's there. And it also sextiles your Pluto. So that there's definitely compatibility there. Your Venus in Aries makes a square to their Saturn. So that means that you guys are just going to have different preferences, maybe in terms of like aesthetic stuff, or like the relationship can take a little bit longer to evolve. Some people would say the Venus square Saturn is probably one of the more challenging aspects that you can see in synastry. Do you feel like there's some issues revolving around like how long it's taking to get to know each other, or is there some like domestic issues, or is there some like distance stuff that kind of comes up here? Just curious. But their Venus and their Saturn, their Venus and their Saturn trines your south node Saturn, so there's some stability there. It's not distance so far. Yeah. Cancer is home. Aries is independence, right? So it's kind of like you're here and I'm there. And then your Venus and Mercury opposes their Pluto. So that's also like a really intense like attraction, wanting to bring something together, but that does feel intense. Sun Mercury, trine Sun Mercury. So you guys have a lot of fire, but you guys also have like a decent amount of water. So it's pretty balanced in this chart. My favorite aspects I think that you guys have is the fact that you have a Juno-Jupiter moon conjunction. Probably one of my favorite aspects in synastry is going to be a moon-Jupiter conjunction. That's like a double whammy. Like, you know, you've got expansion, positivity, abundance, you know, happiness, joy, and then the moon, which is kind of correlated and connected to fortune. So whenever you see moon-Jupiter, it means you guys may travel together, you can expand your home together, there can be a good family dynamic. And it does sextile your Mars and your North Node. It does trine Saturn and also the South Node. So there's some nice stuff that's kind of going on in this chart. And with the Sun very close to the IC, I feel like this is somebody who wants to like either talk on the phone a lot, travel back and forth to see each other. There is an opportunity to like do some like domestic stuff together. They do have Mars kind of coming into an opposition with your moon, which also makes me feel like it would trigger some kind of action or change on like the home kind of domestic zone as well. And the North Node moon is nice too. This is like, especially in the 12th house. Yeah, it's another sexy aspect. You know, moon, Mars, synastry is like very, yeah, it's very much about passion, and especially in like a Venusian sign that can be about pleasure and, you know, behind the scenes, kind of like bedroom stuff together. So that's also nice. And looks like their moon squares your Jupiter. So it definitely does bring up this theme of like a lot of back and forth and emotional growth. And I love that there's a Taurus moon that's kind of shaking up some of your fixed placements here. Together, you guys have placements that create a grand fixed cross. You know, and that's good. I actually like that in astrology. T-squares and like crosses, if it involves the sun or the moon or like the ascendant or the descendant or the nodes, you know, that's meant for growth. If it's planets like Saturn and Mars and Pluto, it could be a little gnarly. And then when we look at it from the perspective of person B, they're a Sag rising. So all of your Aries is falling into their 4th house, cusping on their 5th. 5th is about romance, love, you know, having fun, creativity, and your Sun's right on their Chiron. So that's bringing up the themes of like being able to kind of heal something within the heart space. Uranus on the North Node, which means you kind of help them waken up to being a little bit more spontaneous and like independent and like willing to expand, travel, like learn, which, I mean, oh my God, Sag rising with Sun, Mercury, Mars all tied to the 9th house, like, even if they have a Taurus moon, this is somebody who's like a adventure seeker, you know, like it looks like they're always down for a new experience or a new place. Your moon's conjunct Jupiter along the 3rd house, so that's good for communication. You've got Chiron along the descendant, so it looks like you're helping them heal something through communication. Juno on the midheaven conjunct Pluto, so you guys have 2 Juno aspects, which I like. Juno, Pluto is like power couple, you know? And Saturn in the 12th is interesting. I wonder if this is going to be like clearing up some kind of karma revolving around like past life stuff and intimacy and vulnerability. Mars in the 6th house, still really close to the moon, but in the 6th house is like, you know, somebody who's willing to help kind of assist them, kind of keep things moving. And Jupiter in the 2nd house, so they'll find you valuable. You know, there will definitely be a sense of being like, yes, I value this relationship and this person. Gotta love also Jupiter in opposition to their sun, because it's in your 9th house, but it's in the 2nd. So it's like, yes, this is what I want, you know? And I like Jupiter in opposition to the sun too in synastry. I feel like that can be kind of insinuating that like you bring some kind of optimism to them, you know? And if you look at this person's transits right now, Dorothy, you know, Jupiter is going through their 7th house. It is transiting, bringing opportunities for expansion in relationships, sitting on the South Node, so it can be a karmic connection, and it's bringing up themes with Saturn in the 4th of being like, okay, you know, there's responsibility here, but Saturn is squaring Jupiter, and Jupiter wants to expand, and it's positive and it's optimistic. So there's like a, we can, you know, become something, but what are we doing? Like, where do we live? You know, and that's kind of like the theme for Sag rising all year is they have to take care of emotional home stuff, the past, be taking care of family, like domestic stuff before they really fully expand into what's going to be a pretty prominent relationship period that I think that Sagittarius will see for the better part of like the next year and a half. But yeah, I mean, being that they're a Sag rising and you have all that Aries in their whole sign 5th house, it's a pretty good aspect. You become very fun. You're the playmate. You know, you'll go and help entertain them and learn how to be creative, and you'll stimulate all that stuff. And I think that's what Sag risings kind of like need right now, with a couple more eclipses in Aries, and also we're going to see some retrogrades there. It can be a pretty significant turning point for a Sag rising in terms of their love life. Especially like the beginning of next year. So I think once you get out of like the Saturn-Jupiter square at the end of December, there's a lot of like room to build into something significant. And yeah, I like the synastry together. I would go and learn more about your guys' moon Juno aspects or Juno Pluto aspects, because I think that's kind of saying majorly changing, transforming, and expanding the way that you guys look at relationships, right? Hope that's helpful for you. I mean, the irony of how many synastry readings you guys are going to see tonight, and it's a solar eclipse in Libra. There is a lot of them. There is a lot of them. All right, so let's see. Who else do we have here? So next we've got Lisa, and then Carolina and Diana. Lisa. All right, so let's pull up Lisa. And I just wanted to confirm, because I have so many Lisas, and I know sometimes, guys, the chat goes like MIA. I don't know why it does that, but let's see. This is the January 14th Lisa. I don't know. I have you in here somewhere. Lisa, Lisa, Lisa. There you are. There we go. All right. Lisa says, hey Candace, first message yesterday was cash in. I wanted to verify it went through. It did not, sorry. So let me know, Lisa, if you have a specific question or you just want to know about the eclipse. We can talk about that. And there she is, okay. No question, just tell me what you see. All right, you got it. Sorry, Quinn. Readings are closed, my dude. All right, so Lisa, we have got a Leo rising, sun in Capricorn, moon in Aquarius. Obviously, the sun rules your chart. Well, I mean, I think about how Pluto's retrograde coming back. It's within 5 degrees of your sun, so that is bringing up a major emphasis revolving around the transformations of your health habits and your daily routine. Do not underestimate this transit. For all of my cardinal signs, rising signs, moon signs, sun signs, really pay attention over like the next month, okay? So I know you're probably gonna wanna like be like, tell me about the eclipse. I'll tell you, because it is on your Pluto, so it's important. It means that there is an opportunity for major restarts or boosts when it comes to communication, vehicles, learning, traveling, okay? So communication becomes the focus if the eclipse is gonna be in your 2nd house, right here. And an eclipse conjunct Pluto means that it is about power, and Pluto is retrograde in your chart. So it's about reevaluating, tapping in, realizing your own personal power, the power of the mind, power of communication, of diplomacy, how you can learn from other people, how you're shifting the way that you think. What is going to happen in October is going to be some rock'em sock'em transits for people who have cardinal placements. So we are seeing, you know, Mercury, the sun, and this solar eclipse all going through Libra. We're also watching Mars going through Cancer. So throughout the month, you're going to see planets that are going to square off with Mars, which is going to bring tension. And you're going to see planets square off with Pluto, which is going to bring some kind of frustration or some kind of breakdown or breakthrough. So being that you're having this eclipse here, it's essentially saying like you're going to feel like you're between a rock and a hard place when it comes to communication, when it comes to traveling, maybe dealing with a neighbor, dealing with a sibling, how you're communicating with a partner. The positive is that it's all going to trine your placements in the 7th house. So it is saying you can be friendly, you can be diplomatic, you can be a little bit more attached and kind of channel that energy of air. But I think that the planets squaring your natal Saturn are saying it's bringing up some subconscious issues in relationships and things you need to talk about that you haven't spoken about, or stuff that you kind of held back on. And it's also going to start coming into a square with your sun, which is your chart ruler, which is like where you want to air things out maybe, or you want to heal something, or you want to get clarity. And then it's going to square Pluto. 6th and 12th house deals with health, where the 6th is more like your physical health, the 12th is more like your emotional, spiritual health. And any Leo rising going through this eclipse in these squares, especially if you have Capricorn in your chart, it's going to be about being like, okay, I need to kind of like, you know, just get on with it and say what's on my mind. Or I need to just sit down and, you know, start taking notes, or I need to start journaling, or I need to start walking, you know. There is this like mental dump that has to happen because the South Node is involved with the transits in your 3rd house. So if you don't say what's on your mind, then you can end up getting frustrated, and there can be some pent up emotions, which can create some health issues. It can also create some breathing issues. It can create some communication issues. So you are going to want to watch these transits basically throughout the next month, and it's just being prompted by an eclipse on your Pluto. I think the eclipse on Pluto, because it's right on top of a 9, it's going to be, what are you learning about relationship communication? Right? What are you learning? And with the squares to Saturn, that there can be some problems in relationships if we don't ask the right questions, if we don't know how to tell people what it is we need, if we don't change maybe people-pleasing tendencies, right? South Node Libra, or being too understanding or too flexible or too passive, you know? So lean into the trines that are going to be kind of happening to your 7th house, because I think Aquarius is like a little bit more kind of like aloof. And you have a lot of it there, which means like you're learning to basically be like, it's okay, you do you, that's fine, you know. And that North Node in Aries is getting activated. It's like, I'm gonna go my own way, I'm gonna do my own thing, I can be independent, you can come with me if you want, but you know, by the same token, like, I'm okay if you don't. And this eclipse is ruled by Venus. So with Venus in the 4th, it tells me that like there's something shifting around the way that you look at home and family, or maybe you're considering, you know, traveling and looking for a new place to move. Maybe you're thinking about going on a trip and visiting like siblings, or maybe you've got like a female relative that's going to come and be house sitting or watching your place. That could come up for you as well. But that's pretty much it. So hopefully that's helpful. Certainly October is going to be very eventful with this chart. And I would just say, remember, do your best to communicate, right? If you can lean into the trines to the 7th and also transit Jupiter, like you can find a way to be able to better harmonize with other people while still kind of maintaining your independence, especially when it comes to changing or transforming something about your work or your routine. Okay? All right. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Let's see, who else do we have here? We've got Carolina, Deanna, and then Victoria. All right, let's see, Carolina. Where did I put her chart? Let's see. Make sure I've got the right thing here. There we go. What's up, Carolina? Let's see. Did you send me an email? I want to see, because I know so many people emailed me. No, that was not you. So let me find you here. What's up, Stephanie? Let's see. Where did she come from then? Carolina, are you here? The level 3 one? I want to make sure I didn't miss you. Oh, there you are. Okay. Your message disappeared. I don't know why I don't see you in here. Well, let's add you in here really quick. here we go. All right, Carolina, I got you here June 2nd, 1979, 7 a.m. in Brazil. And did you have a particular question for me, or did you just want to know about the eclipse? No specific question. All right. Gemini rising, Gemini sun, moon in Virgo. Well, the eclipse is going to trine your sun, girl, and your ascendant. Beautiful. So we've got the eclipse here. All right, I use Placidus, so if this is my first time doing a reading for you, I do not use whole signs, so it might be a little different than what you've heard. But the eclipse is going to be at 10, so it's trining your sun. So I think you're going to like that. It can prompt more communication, travel, learning. And it is also kind of sextiling your Jupiter. I mean, it's not making a single challenge. Okay, no, it's sextiling your descendant. This is great. It's just close to your Pluto. It's close enough to feel it. But if this were a whole sign house, you hear, oh, Gemini rising, eclipse in your 5th house, romance, creativity, having fun, But for you, the fact that it's trining your ascendant, which is helping you communicate and travel, it's trining your sun, which is activating communication and travel, it's trining your chart ruler. There are nothing but wonderful aspects here. The one thing that you want to just take into consideration is it is a south node eclipse. So it's kind of like wonky because a new moon is usually where we plant seeds, and then the south node is where we let go of something. So I would look at this and I would go, well, if you are single, then this is about going back and healing any issues where there's blockages or fears revolving around dating or kind of vulnerability or opening yourself up to another person. Could it bring somebody in from the past? Yeah, it could do that because there is a Cazimi. So on the 1st, Mercury will conjunct the sun right before this eclipse. So it is possible that you're like thinking about, oh, my long lost love, and then boom, they pop up on like Facebook or something. But if not, it's going to be about what you're creating. I think about like a south node eclipse in the 5th, and I'd be like, what is something I used to do that I really love that I haven't done in a very long time, or I stopped doing? Have you stopped painting? Have you stopped dancing? Have you stopped creating? What's an old game or an old like hangout that you used to like going to when you were younger? Can you go back to some of those places and do some of those things? Okay, you're in a relationship. So if you're in a relationship, I would say this is because of the sextiles to your 7th, it would be like, we're going to start planning like date nights again, or we're going to make an emphasis to like go and take a salsa class together. Libra is what we do with a partner. 5th house is kind of romantic, it's creative, and if it's not with a romantic partner, it could be like with a younger person or somebody that you can kind of like take with you, to go and do something side by side and kind of have a good time together. That's how I would use this. And it does also look like it can be about expanding the home. So because it's in the 4th house, maybe the creative project or like the hobby or something that you're doing at home and you're investing. So you're like, oh, we want to like have a new entertainment center in our home, or we want to make the kitchen, a way where it can be like more kind of social, and we're able to kind of bring more people in and kind of connect and collaborate or kind of entertain, because Libra is about balance and like atmosphere, So in the 4th house, it can also be prompting, hanging out with family, potentially making changes in your home base. It can be about renovating your home. It can be about going back and visiting family from other places, or planning to do that in the next like 6 months or so, because Mercury's in the 4th house. So if you know that you want to go and see like a relative, or you want them to come and visit you, that could be something that you can consider doing. Okay. Words are going to be very powerful because of the trines that are kind of taking place on your to your ascendant. If this were my chart, I would sit down during the, just after the eclipse. For those of you guys who are wondering, like the 1st and the 2nd is where we get quiet, okay? The 1st and the 2nd of October, we're meditating, we're cleaning out our closets, we're preparing, we're kind of, doing our mental kind of clearing out, because we have to clear stuff out before we set new intentions. What you'll see on the 3rd is that after the eclipse, the moon is going to come into a trine with Jupiter. So on the 3rd is when I want you guys to do your intention setting. Unless you're like, I'm clearing stuff out, I'm letting stuff go, I'm doing cord cutting or healing or anything like that. Sure, you can do that the 1st, the 2nd. But The best manifestations will actually be on the 3rd. And I would sit down with a chart like this and I would talk to my family, talk to my partner, you know, talk about the changes you want to make with having more fun time or maybe within your home. And I would write it down, make a list of the things that you're setting intentions for. Yeah, words are like spells in themselves, you know. So with that eclipse energy trine Jupiter, be optimistic, be appreciative, you know, give thanks, and practice some kind of gratitude ritual before you know, even receive the things. The eclipse can help bring more of that energy in for you over the better part of like the next 6 months. Yeah, not all of the eclipse readings are going to be as positive as that. But let me know what happens. I'm curious to hear what happens. All right, so let's see. No worries. I will definitely do your reading for you, and then you can watch it back. Sorry, I'm just catching up with the chat. Kind of juggling a little bit up here. Give me 1 second. All right. Aw, Steph, I'm sorry to hear that. It sounds like it's also the Mars shadow in your 10th house. A lot of Libra risings are definitely going through that, unfortunately. All right, so we have Deanna and then Victoria, and then we'll move on to the rest of our queue. What's up, Deanna? I know Victoria said she's still thinking of her question, so I'll check in with her in a second. What's going on? Let's see, eclipse for you. Ooh, the eclipse is going to be, you had your reverse nodal return, but it's right on your north node. That's kind of a big deal. Hi. Oh, what an exciting eclipse on your north node. Well, it's not that often that you get that eclipse. You may want to go back in time and see if those eclipses hit around the same degrees, like 18, 19 years ago. The north node is where you're meant to go, right? So when you have an eclipse conjunct your north node, it's going to not only be triggering the ruler of your north node, which is Venus in your 5th house of romance, whole sign 6, health, cleaning, daily routine. So maybe that's why you're cleaning like a crazy person. But also it's connected to your moon, right? Because the north and the south node, they are associated with the moon. So the moon's in Libra, conjunct Pluto. So this is an opportunity for you. It's just barely in your 2nd house of money, but it's there to plant some major seeds revolving around change and transformation, of releasing any fears about money, letting go of any self-esteem issues, letting go of any fears revolving around changing or transforming your home. Maybe it's going to be releasing karma, because it's a south node eclipse, connected to family ancestry, right? Moon Pluto can be about intense mother to daughter relationships, intense sister to sister relationships. It's definitely connected to like women. And I feel like because not only is it a solar eclipse, but it's also going to be your lunar return, that it's very evident to me the next month for you is going to be very, very active. Very, very active. Let me read. Okay. Sending out my retreat information. Okay, cool. So do that on the 3rd. Do that on the 3rd. If you're not doing it on the 3rd, then another day that you can do this is going to be when the Sun or Mercury trines Jupiter. So the Sun rules your chart. So I would say with Mercury trine Jupiter around the 8th, and then with the Sun trine Jupiter, which is then retrograde on the 14th. Those are still good days for stuff though, right? And a solar eclipse connected to your whole sign 3rd is like, I'm creating a newsletter, I'm launching a website, I'm creating a new, a social media platform, I'm getting ready to start kind of putting out, media or content or connecting with people. But that's definitely, yeah, you have several really nice transits between Jupiter and also your natal Jupiter. You haven't even had your Jupiter return yet. So you'll see like Sun trine Jupiter, you'll see Mercury trine Jupiter. So the 8th and the 14th are dates that I would keep in the back of my mind. So if you don't, get it out that day on the 3rd, you can do those particular days as well. And that's good for reaching out to people, you know, looking at invitations, newsletters, that kind of stuff. And the third house is getting triggered. It has to do with contracts. It can be about learning. It can be about planning trips. Venus will be the ruler, and Venus is going to be in your fourth. So it looks like there's going to be a lot of like in and out of your house, or people coming to visit or staying with you. So Libra can be the partner. So it could be that you're getting the house ready, or you're getting your home space ready for somebody to come and visit, right? And Saturn rules your partnership. So when the eclipse comes in, Saturn's actually about to receive a trine from Venus. So right there, right? So to me, this looks like you're like, okay, I'm kind of Shaka Zuluing, you know, the home and rearranging things and cleaning stuff and organizing and purging and kind of, you know, getting the vibes right in the space before you're like bringing somebody into your space. And you'll see also the sun, which can be you, coming into a trine with Jupiter. So that can be about a foreigner. So it's about like possibly somebody coming to visit you, you know? I would really pay attention to the next month, because right after the eclipse, then you have your lunar return. And because it's a lunar return that's an eclipse, that means from about the 3rd in the morning until we come into what will be 2 weeks later when we have the full moon. Has anybody looked at this full moon yet? It literally makes me want to pee my pants. And that says a lot. I look at this moon and I'm like, ah. But, you know, we have the new moon, right? Solar eclipse, you have your lunar return. And then 2 weeks later, we have the full moon. So this is going to be, now we see the full illumination of what was kind of seeded, right? And so this is going to be a full moon in Aries, which in its own right is usually pretty intense. I always call this the cuffing season moon because it's between Libra and Aries. But this one especially. And it's in opposition to Sun and Juno, partnership, togetherness, conjunct Chiron, bringing up wounds, ruled by Mars, squared Mars. Okay, loose square to Pluto. This is scary. But it's the 9th house, which means probably, I don't know if you're traveling or he's traveling, but there's something kind of going on where it's like, okay, getting everything in the home space ready because somebody is coming to visit. Moon rules the 12th house, foreigner, trining Venus in your 4th, you know? So he's coming to you. Yeah. Well, for a Capricorn, you know, that's a full moon that kind of looks like it's like, you know, responsibility, business, like, you know, like work-related things or things kind of connecting to preparing more about work, at least from this perspective, you know, could be about planning, traveling, having to be in and out of airports, that kind of stuff. But yeah, everybody needs to look at the full moon because whatever is being seeded in Libra is going to come up not just in 6 months, but you're going to see it in 2 weeks. So to me, that's like a lot of back and forth. More traveling, you know, more planning for who's coming where, who's going, and, you know, having to kind of set up your schedule and that kind of stuff. If you have software, I'd go and cast your lunar return. And if you don't, you can do that on, I think you can do that on astro.com, but I'd go and look at what your lunar return looks like. Or come back next month and say, hey, I want to look at my lunar return because it's pretty significant there. Anyway, I hope that that's helpful for you. I hope you're able to, oh, okay, cool. So we're going to chat soon anyway. But that would be something that would be interesting to kind of look at. Enjoy your time with your boo. All right, so we have, last but not least, Victoria. What's up, Victoria? You made it just in the nick of time, huh? Let me pull you up here. All right. She says, question for me. I work in criminal defense with a new team. I'm showcasing narrative skills. The first is a murder trial. Starts October 21st. All right, let's look at that. And look at the trial week for me as the supporting role. Okay, you got it. All right, so you're starting on the 21st. Granted, it's probably going to be earlier in the day, so let me scroll that back a little bit. All right. So that day you shine because you've got Jupiter and the moon on your in your 10th house. So this is a good time for like getting some recognition, helping represent clients, and also being able to be, I think, kind of witty and like well-spoken. What's interesting about this is that it's also trining the sun in Libra at 28 degrees, right on top of your natal Pluto and Saturn, where this is about you having like a way with words. Murder trial, Mercury coming into a trine with Saturn. I like that. Communication and being like very point blank and like focused on the details and being able to get the point across. That's good. And you're also going to be seeing a pretty intense square to Pluto that's setting up. Let's see. And Mars is starting to oppose Pluto. Not quite yet, but still, the sun is squaring Pluto. So to me, this is like kind of dramatic. It seems like there is like an emphasis in being able to really put your all into it. I mean, I feel like the 5th house moon is going to be about like really showing people like how to perform, how to take it seriously, you know? And that is squaring your moon, the sun squaring your moon. I would lean into this. This is another, I mean, I haven't even gotten to this astrology yet. I'll talk about it in my monthlies, but this is another good, powerful communication day with Moon and Jupiter coming together. We can be optimistic, we can teach, we can be about, you know, our beliefs, and we can really kind of reference and like cite text and information and books, you know, that kind of stuff. So you might be citing a lot of things that particular day. I'm the helper. The trial starts Monday, and Friday I'm traveling to the city to work and prep on the 2nd. So that's good. I feel like the other thing that's kind of cool that's happening is that, you know, you have intercepted Gemini in the 10th. Like, you're ruled by Mercury, but your Gemini is all intercepted. So when things happen here, you don't see them coming. So this would be like an unexpected, positive, fortuitous event. The only thing that you want to be mindful of is that this square is Neptune. So to me, this is kind of like saying like, okay, you know, is everybody going to be on the same page? You know, do I have a chance to communicate, to see, to talk to everybody? You know, am I getting the support that I need from another person? I think my insights are going to help. I'm the new girl on the team, and I'm new, and I don't want to intimidate other people. I don't see this being intimidating at all, but this is a good time to shine. And being that the sun and Juno are going to hit your Pluto, I feel like this could be about you communicating and connecting with somebody and feeling like you've built a good team. The entire month of October is working together and not feeling like we need to be combative or confrontational or even competitive. Like, that's going to get us in some trouble, some of the squares. So I don't see you as being any of those things. I'm just letting you know that it's going to be really good, I think, as an Aries, but also as a Virgo, to be kind of getting a moment where you're able to shine and like make some headway. Just be mindful of like the square to Neptune. You may feel like there are some people you didn't get as much one-on-one time with, or maybe there are some people who did not get a chance to hear or see everything you were saying or doing, or maybe you feel like there can be situations where you're working in a partnership with somebody and you're like, what are they doing? Like, why am I the one doing all of this? You know, because there's this feeling of, okay, I have to show up and manage something with these planets in the 10th house, and I have to be the one standing up and communicating. But you may have somebody who's a little bit more passive or a little bit more mousy, or they're a little bit more afraid to be seen, you know, when you're having like the moon and Jupiter squaring Saturn and Neptune in your 7th house. So some people may be a little bit more passive, but it's okay. Step up, do what you got to do, say what you got to say anyway. This is activating a period of like leadership, and it'll be like the 19th, 20th, 21st, as all these planets kind of go through your 10th house. Let us know what happens. Keep me updated. Certainly that's going to be interesting because the full moon is saying traveling, teaching, training. You know, that is the theme for you, especially kind of going into mid-October. Student becomes the teacher. Yep. Teamwork makes the dream work. I want to make good impressions, stay on the team for others in case of the future. Well, and things are colorful because Uranus is still coming back into your 10th house. right? And likely, you know, with Uranus in your 10th house, you're working for 2 jobs anyway. Next year, you're going to see some really significant change in terms of how you're working and who you're working with and like the teams that you're kind of working with. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Victoria. Keep us updated. We'd love to hear how that goes for you next month. All right, so we're moving to our Q people. So we've got Marissa, Holly, and Adriana. You guys are all on deck, and I gotta plug Marissa in because I don't think I have her. I didn't know that was her. All right, let's see. 12-5. All right, so I've got her, and we're gonna be looking at cruise. And it looks like that was January 1975. All right. So Marissa, I have you here December 5th, 84, 6 p.m. Cancer rising, moon in Taurus, and your sun is in Sag. And then we've got Cruz here, who is an Aries rising, sun and moon in Capricorn. All right, so I'm gonna read your letter that you sent me. Hey Candace, I booked a reading with you exactly a year ago and I have some questions about your relationship and you want better understanding. My boyfriend is planning to move. He's gonna buy a condo. We will not be living together. My work and my son are in LA. We both currently live in LA. My issue is that he's planning to move to Riverside. This is where he can afford to buy a condo and it's a halfway point between me and his family. He moved to LA from San Diego in February of this year until he can find something more permanent. I want to know if this will affect our relationship and if there's marriage in the future. He swears that he'll never marry again. The last reading you gave me, you said that he had a second marriage in his chart. And I love him and it's stressing me out. All right, we've been bickering a lot more lately and I'm exhausted doing long distance relationship thing. All right, well, let's take a look. Let's see what's going on. So if you're listening, Marissa, this is for you unless you had to run. Just some food for thought, okay? So you're a Cancer rising and Mars is in your first house. You can be feeling a little bit more temperamental than usual. In fact, Mars is going to spend a lot of time in your first house because it will retrograde from Leo back into Cancer. So it'll be almost like 6 months of having this Mars transit where Cancer risings do feel a little bit more agitated. You know, they're a little bit more eager. They can feel like they want to assert themselves a little bit more, especially when it comes to like romance. And so it's moving through your first house right now in opposition to Jupiter, which can be about a partner, and also in opposition to Venus, which can also be about a partner and feeling kind of lost or isolated without someone, while Pluto is back in conjunction with your Venus. Okay, so it's going to get better. Pluto will move further and further away from your Venus over like the next couple of months. It's going to go back into Aquarius and that'll ease up. I think you're getting hit by both a combination of Saturn in the 9th house where a partner has moved further away and it's making you feel isolated or anxious, and the incoming Mars in opposition to Pluto. So for a Cancer rising, you're going to hear, well, you know, you're anxious, you want to make something happen, you're wanting to push something, and a partner is like resistant, you know, to change, resistant to shifts in relationships, that kind of stuff. When you see some gnarly 1st, 7th house oppositions going on, it's more challenging to relate. So you're going to kind of see that from the end of October really through about February, March of next year. Equally, Saturn is going through the top part of your chart right now where it's trying to get you to focus on, you know, okay, on one hand, career, status, working, but Saturn rules your 7th. So there's this sense of being like, well, do I see myself getting into a serious relationship again? Am I going to be able to do that? Is this person going to kind of commit to me? Well, look at your natal Saturn, right? In the 5th house, conjunct the South Node. So there's maybe been a period of relationships where you come together, it's intense, and then they kind of break away. And if you notice, Uranus is still in opposition to your Saturn, and it's on your North Node. So it's really trying to get you to focus more on who am I socializing with? Am I taking time to kind of manage my stress behind the scenes? What's going on? And now you've got a solar eclipse coming up in the 4th house, which means there is some emotions coming up about your home or your living situation or the loss of feeling close to a partner. So it's like all, you know, kind kind of happening at the same time. Over the next 2 years, Saturn and Neptune will go into Aries. And it'll be in your 10th house, which means you're going to want a new status. You're going to want a new job. You're going to want to officially be in a committed relationship. You're going to want to announce that to the world. And it's going to start squaring your natal Neptune Mercury. So to me, it seems like you want clarity. And just to put it simply, I feel like the next couple of months with Mars in opposition to Pluto is going to give you some insight as to whether or not the long distance thing can work and if you guys can work together or if there's going to be some power struggles. I would give it through the beginning of the year to see how that manifests personally. I think about how, let's pull up his chart now. Think about how he's in Aries rising, and it's bang on with the astrology. Saturn and Neptune are going to be going into his sign, sitting on his ascendant, which is going to materialize as being like, okay, I'm independent, you know, I'm doing more on my own. I'm focusing more on my goals, being the boss of myself, and it's naturally going to square his moon, which is about romantic partners and the home situation where he's got a new space that he's defined, and it's putting a kink in romantic relationships. And simultaneously, it's starting to come into an opposition with his descendant, where he has Pluto. And this is a guy who probably feels like relationships or partners try to kind of control him because Pluto's in the 7th, right? His 7th house is ruled by Venus. And over the next couple of years, Pluto's going to come into conjunction with Venus. So it's going to be about major transformations in relationships and how one communicates in relationships as well, Mercury, Venus. Anyway, the South Node is sitting on the 7th house cusp, right now. And this eclipse that's coming is right on his Pluto, which means he's got a partner who's having a meltdown over the fact that they're feeling very disconnected in the relationship, and there's a change or a transformation going on in this relationship. And thankfully, this trines his Venus. So, you know, if you play your cards right, this could mean that there's an opportunity to come together and talk about the future of relationships. Pluto and Uranus in his 7th house was not too fortuitous, I think, for a committed first relationship. I think that that's pretty obvious to me that there was going to be some kind of breakdown in a relationship or some kind of loss, especially with Venus in Aquarius. The second one would be the 9th house, which is what I told you, where he has his North Node, ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter's in the 12th. So it means that it may not be until there's a period of isolation or separation, right? 9th house Lord in the 12th, that then there is an opportunity for a relationship. And if you look, Saturn's retrograding over his 9th house Lord, and there will be, you know, a North Node eclipse there. There's going to be North Node transits. There's going to be all kinds of stuff that's going to be hitting there. I would say to you, you know, looking at his astrology, probably either after the eclipse, maybe when planets start going into Capricorn and they start squaring the eclipse degrees. So it looks like the end of November, you'll see some of that. You'll see some of that in the end of December. Planets are now going through Capricorn and they're squaring. And that could be like, okay, now we're at a turning point, you know, like what's happening. And in his chart, it's more about career, work, responsibility. But, you know, what action is he taking to balance out relationships and work? And then another time that's going to be interesting with this chart is going to be when Venus goes retrograde in his 1st house next spring, March and April. 7th house Lord goes retrograde on the ascendant, you know, conjunct Mercury. To me, if y'all are having some issues, it could be around that March, April time. It could also mean that if you guys have a little bit of like space and a falling out, there can be like a reconnection that can happen as well. But we need to see something positive going on with Jupiter for like the relationship to really evolve. And Jupiter is in opposition to all of this, which means there's communication, texting, going back and forth, seeing each other, you know, doing the long distance thing, especially with the Saturn square. I would hold on a little bit longer. I wouldn't kind of X this out because both of you guys are having oppositions and squares that it's about seeing how this goes until you get to the springtime. And then if you guys can still make it work, great. Knowing that Mars is going to retrograde back into his 4th house is also going to be about like re-evaluating his home situation. Like, to be honest with you, I don't know if he's already moved. Planning to buy a condo soon. We will not be living together. I mean, like, I'm not a mind reader. I'm not a market predictor. But probably the worst time he could be buying a house. Mars going into shadow in his 4th house, and then it's going to go retrograde over his Saturn, means that there's about to be a situation where he's either going to buy a house and he's going to realize, oh man, you know, I shouldn't have bought a house, or there's problems with a condo, or like, God forbid, you know, there's an issue with a family member and they're like, well, now you're too far, we need you here. Like, it's not good timing for him to be buying a house, right? You got Venus and, you know, obviously moving in a debilitated sign, which is about ownership. And yeah, it's in a trine with Mars, but Mars is going over his Saturn. So likely if he is buying something this soon, he's going to buy something and then he's going to go, oh my God, you know, now it's not valued the same. And Mars is going to oppose Pluto. It also tells me he's going to be trying to move somewhere that's going to be too far away from work or too far away from his friends, you know, or social life. So not good timing. But he'll see with Mars retrograde, you know, even in his chart, it's about an issue going on with his relationship that he has to somebody who's younger that he's dating. Mars in opposition to Venus. So this is going on clear until December, January, February, and the retrograde is going to be in your chart too. The lesson is for you to be like not getting frustrated about it, not freaking out about it, allowing it to do its thing. For all we know, you know, he may end up being somewhere closer. He may end up delaying the move. Sometimes when we're thinking that we're going to move and we have like a Mercury retrograde and Mars retrograde in the 3rd or the 4th house, sometimes people are like, oh man, we've had too many issues, you know, now we're postponing. So you never really know. Until you start to see those retrogrades hit. And actually by the beginning of October, right around like the 5th, Mars is already in shadow. And so for him to have Mars squares Chiron, square the transits in the 7th house and oppose the sun means October is going to be a month for him. He's going to be feeling like it's him trying to make this housing situation happen is going to feel very overwhelming between dealing with a partner and also dealing with work and dealing with his family. I'm not going to say that it won't happen, but it's not necessarily going to be the easiest time for him to do this. So he'd be better off waiting until Mars retrogrades and then it trines Saturn. Like if he really wants to buy something, you know, he could go and do this when Mars is starting to sextile Uranus. And that's going to be like around the end of February of next year, you know, or waits until Jupiter gets into his 4th house where it's going to be exalted. And it comes in a conjunction with Saturn. He's better off trying to buy something next summer. I know I'm not the only astrologer that has said this. I know I have other astrology friends that are on YouTube that have said the same thing. We're all telling you guys 2026, 2027, this is going to be the time to buy houses. This is most likely when we're going to see some pretty significant economic things changing, especially with the housing market. So, yeah, if you can wait, if you can save money, if you can, you know, rent, if you can live with family, live with roommates, 2026 and 2027 is going to be a better time to be buying because people are going to be buying stuff over the next couple of months into the next year. And I think they're going to realize that it's going to be grossly, grossly overvalued. Hopefully that's helpful for you, my dear. Good luck with that situation. Sending you lots of good vibes in navigating the long distance. That can be so very frustrating, I know. All right, so we've got Holly, Adriana, and then we have Anonymous. So let's pull up Holly. And thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. I know you guys are all waiting. And do me a favor and like the stream if you can see me. All right, let's see what Holly had to say here. I'll make sure I have the right Holly. 311. Nope, that's not the right one. Let's pull up the right Holly. There we go, 311. There she is. And then we've got Holly, husband. All right, I've got another Sinistry reading here. Holly, I have you here. March 11th, 76 at 8:10 p.m. And then I've got your partner on January 21st, 67. And that was at 6:57 a.m.
All right. What's the next 6 months look like for us? Any breaking points? Ah! I'm looking at some of your cardinal placements. Wow. What an interesting chart. Mars on the ascendant, reverse nodes, Moon, Jupiter, wow, Saturn. All right, Holly. You know, I think about for you what's happening right now, that you've been experiencing eclipses in your 7th house with the North Node that's supposed to be having you kind of come more so into relationships and partnerships with others, right? Or focusing on your spouse more, which is good. You've also got your Chiron return that's kind of setting up. So this is about healing issues in relationships, especially because it's conjunct Jupiter. So it's about either your husband healing some issues or you guys working through something together. I think about the eclipse that you just had on your sun, which is big changes for you personally, especially when it comes to your happiness, joy, and also your health. It's on the cusp of your 6th. And you've got this next eclipse that's coming in at 10, almost 11 degrees. So it's right on your Pluto, right? So relationships, Libra, 12th house, hidden subconscious issues that you have maybe within yourself, within resources, or with control. Wow. Let's see. Let's flip this chart around a little bit here. Definitely there's some stuff getting banged up in this chart, because not only in the next month are you going to see planets go through Libra, kind of ricochet all over your guys' cardinal stuff, but you've also got Pluto that's in opposition again to your Moon, Saturn, and his Jupiter. Holy cow. You guys have so many things triggered in this chart. It's wild. And then he is a Capricorn rising. Oh, I already see what's going on here. And he's got Mars that's going to go retrograde on his descendant. Holly, are you here, or are you, if you're here, say something so I can like kind of chit chat with you a little bit, but I'm just going to be like super, super blunt. I don't pick sides, but with Pluto on his ascendant right now, and it's retrograde back towards his ascendant, which is supposed to be about a period of personal change and transformation, especially pertaining to like his goals, his career, you know, what he can and cannot control, and also hitting his sun, which is intercepted. This year and next year, he's on the path of like major personal transformation, right? And he can stay in a relationship and do that, but I have found when Pluto goes through the 1st house, especially with a sun at 0 degrees, it's going to be harder. He's going to be harder to deal with. There is going to be a sense of him being like, you're not the boss of me. Don't tell me what to do. You know, that stuff's going to start kind of coming up. And Mars is going to go into Cancer, where you have your Saturn and your Moon, where you're very committed, devoted, and what have you. He can handle that because he's Saturn based. But Mars is going to retrograde back and forth over his Juno. Literally, it'll station retrograde conjunct his Juno, that's his wife, and retrograde over Jupiter, which is his whole sign 12th house lord. It's also connected to movement, communication. And when Pluto's in Capricorn, Mars opposes that. When Pluto's in Aquarius on his sun and his Mercury, Mars opposes that. Anybody who's got sun combust Mercury with Juno on the opposition tells me that there's some stressful communication between, you know, them and their spouse. And this all trines his Gemini moon. So it's like, you know, let's have fun. This is what I want. This is what I'm going to do. And it can be, for a Capricorn rising, it's kind of flighty. There's a lot of air in this chart. I think intuitively also the eclipse that happened in Pisces right on his Chiron is bringing up themes revolving around money and resources, and whether or not there's going to be some financial discussions or talks about traveling or having to kind of move around a little bit. So when you ask me what you asked me, let me read that back. You're like, what's the next 6 months look like? Any breaking points? Yeah, definitely. The breaking points are going to be, I mean, it's more obvious in his chart than it is in yours, by the way. And I'll tell you what yours is in just a second. But, you know, the breaking point's going to be when Mars gets up here where he's feeling like there's a lot of pressure to communicate or some changes on the home front with a partner, and he's maybe resisting that change, or he feels like a partner is being like too much emotionally. So you'll start seeing that kick in right around the end of October. Simultaneously, planets going through the whole sign 10th house squaring, so potential changes kind of coming up in terms of relationship or career stuff. And then Mars will turn retrograde here right on top of his Juno. This is his wife. And when that happens, it's going to oppose Venus and Pluto. So there can be some really selfish kind of tendencies coming up in December, and there could be a little bit of squabbles. You guys can get through it, but you might want to think about what was happening like the beginning of 2009. I think that was the last time we had a retrograde in this area. At least Mars is retrograding over Jupiter, which is a fortuitous planet. But I think with the oppositions, it's somebody being like, look, I'm trying to grow with you, or I'm trying to help you, or I'm trying to teach you, and like, you know, are you getting with the program or not? And then Mars will go direct. It'll come back into these oppositions again, so you could feel like you're going back and forth with this until about April, and then it's going to start to shift. And, you know, the moon rules his 7th house. Next year, Uranus is going to hit his moon. So it looks like it's either about some change in a relationship, moving in or out of a place, going back and forth between two places, some kind of like freedom now in terms of a relationship. Those seem to be the themes, you know. So it's not just the Mars retrograde. It's Uranus coming in to hit his 7th house lord as well. I wonder if you guys are going to be living between two places. That might be an option. And as a Libra rising, you know, Pluto's back in your 4th house, whole sign. So it changes transformations to the home. I think Libra risings are going to be pretty fierce the next month. I think about how, you know, the Sun and Mercury are going to go through the 1st house, which is going to be I think, I need, I want, you know, and recognizing and realizing that you're letting go of like passiveness or being too people-pleasing or too understanding, and it's going to trigger confrontation and having to kind of air stuff out with people. And all of that's squaring Pluto, which is what needs to change in the home or old patterns in the home. And then all of this is squaring your Cancer placements as Mars goes through there, where you're feeling more assertive. Yeah, it's a time where you're being more direct with what you need. And so having like Mercury and the Sun go through your 4th house is very symbolic of him going through the Mars transit in the 7th, and Mars is going through your 10th. So, you know, be mindful that October is a month where there's a lot of moving parts. Mars ruling your relationship, going retrograde in the 10th means you might change career, you might change your relationship. You know, something like that is kind of happening, and you have Chiron, Jupiter, Moon, Saturn, you know, Pluto. I mean, all of these planets are going to square off with each other, you know. So you have to be patient in October. That's your lesson. And watch the full moon around the 17th in your 7th house, where there could be some potential kind of, you know, explosive conversation, but also opportunity to heal something and move through some issues. And for you, you know, Jupiter coming in conjunction with Mars means there can be new opportunities and relationships on the horizon, but it's going to come from you being really clear about what you need. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Holly, good luck. All right, so we're going to have Adriana, and then we have SF Anonymous, and then Goldie. All right, so let's see. Adriana, let's pull this chart. And if you're here, just pop in and say hi so I know, so I can do some feedback with you. Let's see. Make sure I've got the right one here. September 11th. There we go. What's up, Adriana? All right, so let's see what she has to say. So you are September 11th, 86, 7:54 a.m. And that's Libra rising, Sun in Virgo, and your moon is in Sag. I'll be signing a lease for a new apartment at some point in the next week, and I would like to get your advice on timing. I've had horrible luck in the past couple of years finding quality home, and I'm very nervous for this decision. Which days look best for having the lease to start? I could potentially wait until November. Nope, you're gonna be able to sign it this month. Okay, all right. So first of all, let's rework the thought pattern. I don't have horrible luck with homes. Everything is working out for me. I'm going to be signing a lease. It's going to go great. I'm going to have a very comfortable, stable living situation. Be very careful how much power you give to Pluto. Okay, Pluto is in the final weeks of being in Capricorn, which has been a shit show for Libra risings when it comes to home and living situations. You're almost done. Jupiter, in theory, rules your whole sign third house of contracts and agreements, as does Mars. So you've got a couple of really great transits. One would be when Mars, which is your agreement with other people, comes into a trine with Saturn. So that's going to be, let's say, the 29th or the 30th, okay? The other option is you can wait until after the eclipse and you have Mercury come into a trine with Jupiter, which is very positive for agreements. In my mind, okay, so that's going to be here. I think it's the 8th. Yeah. Okay, so on the 8th, Mercury, agreements, trining Jupiter. And third house, leases and agreements, sextile. So you can do the 8th. Or you can wait until the sun comes into a trine with Jupiter. That's a good day for agreements as well. And do it while the moon is still in Aquarius. So do this in the morning on October 13th, right? And I'm just thinking because Jupiter rules your whole sign third house and you got sextiles and you got trines, you know, that would be a good time to do it. Those are some of the better communication days all month long. So I don't want you to do any other days outside of that, ideally. And once you start getting into the end of October, you're going to start seeing planets in your first house that are squaring Pluto. And you're also going to see a full moon that's going to be in your 7th house, also kind of square Pluto. So I don't like the pressure of some of that stuff, I guess is kind of what I'm getting at. So if you can do those, yeah, of September or October. So one more time, you can do the 30th of September here, where you have Mars trine Saturn, home, and also agreement and partners with other people. The 7th, when Mercury comes into a trine with Jupiter, you kind of have it on the 8th too. Actually, the 8th would be better. And then when the sun comes into a trine with Jupiter, which is going to be on the 13th. Okay, any of those days. And if you do it on the 13th, it needs to be in the morning. But that would be best. I don't want you waiting until Mercury or, you know, Venus go into Sag. Because when Venus goes into Sag, it's going to square Saturn. And when Mercury comes into Sag, it's going to get ready to go retrograde. Keep in mind that when you have the Mercury retrograde at the end of this year, so it'll be November into December, it's going to be in your 3rd house where you're going to have to review a document or you're going to be looking at a lease maybe. It might be a time where you're getting to know your new neighborhood. That's good. It might be a time where you're getting to kind of know your neighbors. This retrograde is going to oppose Jupiter, which means that you're going to have to kind of get out, kind of meet people, you know, figure out, okay, where's the grocery store? Where's the gym? Where's this? Where's that? And it's also going to square Saturn. So, you know, doing this sooner rather than later is better. So definitely do it in October because I don't want you hitting some of these transits in like November when you're signing the lease. And also, happy move. You've got an eclipse coming up on your ascendant and you're moving. That's awesome. You know, for the Virgo rising, I know you're not a Virgo rising, you're a Virgo sun, but for Virgo horoscopes, you know, you have the eclipse in the 2nd house, which is I'm clearing stuff out or I'm moving or whatever because Venus is 3rd house to your sun. So in your case, yeah, you're moving, right? Good luck with the move. I hope that that's helpful and that the lease goes well. All right, so we have Anonymous, and then Goldie, and then Stacy. You're welcome. Okay, you're SF, Anonymous. Just so that way you know who you are. So I've got you here, June 27th, 93, in Cape Town, and let's see. let's see what they had to say. Where is that? Hey Candace, I would like to be anonymous. I went through a breakup in August, which you predicted, and I'd like to know if you can see what's coming to me for my love life, or what my partner might be, if possible. If otherwise, just what's happening with the eclipse. All right. Well, I'm sorry to hear about your breakup. That's a bummer, but that looks like that's your Saturn stuff. And maybe even the Mercury retrograde that was going on in the midst of that this summer. So the sun is connected to your 7th house of relationships, and 5th house is dating. So I think about how, Jupiter is expanding your 5th house all year. And that does make it possible for you to get out, meet people, go to bars, go to clubs, socialize, get out there and connect with other people. And it's going to be trining your ascendant. And it's also going to be coming into a trine with your moon. So there's nothing keeping you from going out and meeting people. Because your 7th house ruler is in the 5th, it could be both a combination of meeting somebody at a bar, cafe, restaurant, or meeting somebody close to work. Your sun's at a 6, and it's connected to your whole sign 6th. So maybe you go to a coffee shop, you go to get lunch, food, some kind of drink. So it could be like a cafe or like a Starbucks or something, and you might meet somebody right outside of your work. And Mars is going to be retrograde from Leo into Cancer. You'll see this later in the year. So right now it's still hanging out in your 5th house. So you can date, although I think there's going to be much more of an emphasis on work and productivity for the next couple of months. But you are either Saturn or Uranus. So when we see a trine between that and the sun, something can happen. So I'm looking at the end of October as the sun's starting to trine Saturn, and Mars is in your 6th house. So I would say right around Halloween, going out, maybe meeting somebody, after work, going out with coworkers, trying a new restaurant, or even a bar, or a coffee shop. You might meet somebody right around then. And then you're going to see Jupiter retrograde in your 5th, so you're reevaluating dating in November. And then you're going to have Mars retrograde. Now, as an Aquarius rising with Mars retrograde, it means that somebody who you have dated may call you and reach back out to you. Okay, so that could be especially mid-December. And I would say you need a really strong aspect with your sun. So we're not going to see Mars hit it. We're going to see planets trine it in March. And then probably the big one is when Jupiter hits your sun. So when Jupiter hits your sun, June of 2025, well, this is saying relationships syncing up. You are obviously Uranus, and then Jupiter deals with resources and also stability and committed goals and friends. This could be a time you meet somebody, but to me, this could also be about pregnancy because it's in Cancer. And right when you're having your Jupiter-Sun connection, you have your Mars return. So something really big relationship-wise is going to be taking place for you June of 2025 is what it looks like. And let's see. So you are 31 this year. So you're in an 8th house year. And then when you have your birthday next year, you'll move into a 9th house year ruled by Venus, where you have Jupiter and the moon. And the ruler is Venus, and you have Venus in the 4th. So this could be about moving in with somebody within that year, June of 25 to 26, moving to another place, getting married, moving with a partner. That stuff could all happen. So I would go and look at your Mars return for June of 25, and I would go and learn about your annual perfection year 7. But considering you have it in its home sign and its domicile in your 4th house, I think it's going to be about possibly considering moving in with somebody, or there being some kind of ceremony, having a much more comfortable home. And Jupiter is husbands. So for you to have Jupiter and the moon in the 9th house, it could be saying that that's a year that you meet somebody or you travel and then you end up connecting with someone that could be a partner, right? Hopefully that's helpful in kind of giving you some insight. I would wait and see what happens with the Mars retrograde, because somebody can kind of come back around And with the oppositions to Pluto, it makes me kind of feel like it's as to whether or not, you know, you have changed and if you want to let that person in, or if you're reevaluating what's happened in relationships and you're healing something before you jump back into dating. Hopefully that's helpful for you, SF. Sending you lots of good vibes in your post-breakup. All right. Who else do we have? We have Goldie. What's up, Goldie? 11/11/1970, 4:38 a.m. and that was in Delaware. I like your birthday. Birthday twins. Holy cow, Goldie! Look at your chart. You're a Libra rising, Scorpio sun, Aries moon, just like me. Holy cow. Wow, except your sun is in the first house. I wonder if we look the same. Do we look the same? Have I read for you before? That's crazy. It's not often that I see that combination. Yeah, we might look very similar. We have the same birthday and we have the same moon by a degree. I'm 0 degree Libra rising, but that's kind of, I have the same North Node as you. Goldie, you have to leave me a comment. I want to know, like, what do you look like and what do you do for a living? Because we're eerily similar. I love that you have Venus retrograde conjunct Jupiter. You're a first timer. Okay, you'll have to maybe email me a picture of you or something. What do you do for work? Very curious. Well, I've never seen somebody's chart is close to mine before. That's so wild. All right, so Goldie says, hey Candace, I wanted a general eclipse reading, but really want to build a life with someone. Any guidance around finding love and partnership would be helpful. Honestly, trying to find my footing in general. Whatever you could see that would guide my energy action, that would be very helpful. All right, let's talk about it. First of all, Goldie, I want you to know that the transits that are happening right now are very, 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 very important. Okay, so try not to think about it as when's it going to happen? When is it showing up? There is something that's being planted now that's going to unfold over the next 6 months. So let's start at the beginning. Solar eclipse in Libra. Okay, for Libra rising, it's fresh starts, new beginnings. The first house, whole sign, is relationship to self, shedding old skin, changes in regards to your identity. Also, it's going to be right on top of your natal Uranus and Mars. So having your 7th house lord and your whole sign 5th house lord in the 11th means that there's some karma revolving around relationships and back and forth, hot and cold, off and on, or maybe attracting people that are like hot and heavy and then they kind of like vanish. Or there can be a feeling of being like, where do I find someone if your relationship lord is in the 12th house, right? And it can drive you kind of crazy. Anyway, the South Node's going through there right now with this eclipse saying we can clear that out if you want. Mars is about heat and cutting, and Uranus is about shocks and surprises. So I would advise you on the 1st or the 2nd of October. Do it on the 1st. Sit down, take a piece of paper, right? And I want you to write out, okay, any karmic contract from past lives, whatever, you know, anything that's hindering me from meeting somebody, like all contracts are void, they no longer apply, right? Like cut the paper up. And then what I want you to do is I want you to throw it into something like fireproof and then light it on fire. All right? And then what I would like you to do is, if you can, dispose of those ashes in some way. Just don't leave it in your house, right? You want to put it somewhere else. You can go bury it. You can throw it in some running water. You know, you can go flush it outside somewhere. Just don't leave it in your house. And this is to kind of clear out the old subconscious stuff. Then on the 3rd and the 4th, you can set intentions for yourself. So it's like, okay, this is what I'm doing for myself. When you have a solar eclipse in the 1st house, you can change something about yourself if you want. You can change something about your appearance if you want. You can change your hair, change your clothes. You can be focusing on letting go of like old identity stuff. And what's going to happen in 6 months' time is you're going to see that there is going to be a Mercury and a Venus retrograde happening at the same time in Aries. So it's going to be going retrograde from your whole sign 7th to your 6th. So this is now in opposition to where this eclipse was and also where the Pisces eclipse was. So it's a time where then you can bring somebody in. When you have a Mercury retrograde, we change our mind. When we have a Venus retrograde, something changes karmically about relationships. So you may see that that's an opportunity where a relationship is manifesting. Chiron's on your descendant, and it's on your moon. And so what I will tell you is Chiron coming into the 7th house, right when it comes into the 7th house, it can bring a relationship that can be healing and therapeutic. The 7th house is counselors, therapists, astrologers, one-on-one relationships. And I think this might be about working with like a astrologer. It could be a relationship coach. It could be a fitness coach, somebody who's going to incentivize you to be like, yeah, go after relationships, like meet people, you know, be daring, especially with the moon in the 7th house. There can be issues though where there's like needing to heal wounds, and it can be about mother figures or romantic partners that can come up as well. But generally that's when we see that, you know, there can be healing that can be done, and we all have that transit sometime around, you know, our early 50s is when we have our Chiron return. And then finally, the other thing that's kind of happening in the background is, you know, you have Saturn this year. Let's look at that. Saturn is trining your Venus in the 1st. Saturn in the 5th is self-love, you know, like finding hobbies, enjoying things, doing things that make you feel good. And it's also trining your Jupiter. So it's about the way that you think about love, the way that you communicate about love. And then it's trining your Sun. So that would be more kind of social. For Libra risings, Mars going retrograde too at the end of the year, you know, December through about February, March, is a potential job change, but it could also be a potential relationship status change. So if you're looking for love, you know, you'll find love wherever your 7th house Lord is in the 12th. So you want to watch for, you know, foreigners. It could be professors. It could be people who are into spirituality. It can be people who start coming in your dreams, you know, and visiting you before you meet them. You might be able to better connect with them in like a healing studio, a meditation space. Maybe you're doing some kind of like meditations on like love or manifestations for love, and then they can kind of come in. But I think with all of the retrogrades in opposition to this, there's going to be a huge turning point with relationships as late as next spring. As early as 2 weeks from now, we have a full moon that's going to be right along your descendant. So this will be your lunar return. And it says that there is healing and partnerships coming up. And then Juno was on the ascendant. So I'd keep my eyes out 15th through like the 18th, even the 19th of October. That can mean that there is a strong opportunity for you to meet someone, and Mars is going into the 10th. So you'll meet them out in the real world. You know, you'll meet them at work, or there'll be some kind of connection through career or like professional related things that would bring somebody in for you. And Venus, yeah, is opposing. Venus will be opposing Uranus too. That's your chart ruler. And, you know, you have Saturn conjunct Juno. So this can mean that there is like a getting married, settling down, you know, committing like later in life type of vibe. And with Venus and Juno and Venus retrograde, invest in the 1st house. I mean, in the Sun in the 1st house. You know, this is a lifetime where you're learning more about the relationship to yourself. Doesn't mean you can't have partners, but it's almost like there's been so many hot and cold or off and on or delay with relationships and commitment that it's taught you how to be a little bit more self-sufficient with Venus, Jupiter, and the Sun in the 1st house. How are you liking Uranus in opposition to your Mercury? Are you feeling crazy with that? Yeah, and Venus in opposition to Saturn too, yeah. But Venus is retrograde, and that's what's rising in your chart. You have Venus rising, you know? And with Venus conjunct Vesta, it's like, I got to do me first. The most important relationship is going to be the relationship with myself. I'm committed and devoted to myself. And then when you do that, it's like, boom, you know, somebody comes in. The Aries moon is interesting also in the 7th because it's ruled by Mars, and Mars is in the 12th. So it's like, I'd be very wary of people who come on fast, who are like, yeah, let's do this. I would be like, let's see if they're consistent, because you have Mars Uranus in the 12th, you know? So it's like, let's see if they're consistent, you know, not jumping into anything or like rushing into anything. I think is kind of important with this chart, and seeing if somebody's going to, you know, really do what they're kind of meant to do. And I'm curious to see what happens if there's something around that full moon next month. So you'll have to come and let us all know. Freaky to see that. Yeah, well, Venus in Scorpio, but I don't think I've seen a chart that's so eerily similar to mine before. That's kind of cool. Thank you for stopping by, Goldie. All right, let's see. We have Stacy, and then Kaja. Am I saying that right? And then Iris. Stacy. All right, let's see what's going on with Stacy. Let's pull this up. Where is that chart? Let's see. Mm. 17th of January, where is she? I could have sworn I had you in here. Nope. All right, let me plug you in. I don't know what I did with your chart. I apologize. There we go. All right, Stacy, I've got you here January 17th, 82, and that was at 12:29 p.m. and that was in Australia. And let's see, is she here? There we go. I didn't realize I could say I have no question because I have so many questions. Okay. All right. I did get your message though, just so you know. Thank you for the love letter. I get some of those every now and then. So let's look at your transits here. Oh wow, you got quite the Pluto transit going on right now, and you got an eclipse conjunct your Mars. All right, so let's start with the eclipse. The eclipse is going to be in your 6th house. So this is a south node eclipse. So we're clearing out job stuff. We're clearing out pet and animal related things. We're clearing out old outdated habits and things revolving around coworkers or romantic relationships and things of that nature. You've already been through like the cosmic purge in recent years. I can't imagine having south node eclipses on all of this stuff and also having Pluto on my sun. That's like unbelievable because they're squaring each other. So things have been real for you in recent years. Anyway, a solar eclipse in the 6th house though, conjunct Mars, which even though, Mars is, debilitated in Libra, Mars likes being in the 6th house. So there's almost this sense of being like, okay, I'm doing away with the old kind of patterns and habits, but simultaneously I am still willing to get to work. I am still willing to be productive. Nice aspects with this eclipse. Outside of the fact that it's a south node eclipse, so you want to be careful of digestional issues, back issues, health issues, problems with changes with your habits or your work. This trines your midheaven. This trines your Jupiter. So it's not all that all that bad. I mean, I feel like an eclipse here is just like the grand finale of what has been years and years and years of South Node eclipses and Pluto transits. And so when you say I'm a shell of my former self, I definitely sixth house and go, okay, you know, you of all people know you got a ton of planets in your sixth house. I personally believe houses trump signs, so you may have a ton of Libra in your chart, but the sixth house comes down to your health, right? And all of this, I mean, Moon conjunct Pluto, conjunct Saturn, conjunct Mars, holy cow, all in a square to your sun. So you've got some conflict between the conscious and the subconscious, and all like people who are just, quite honestly, a pain in the ass. People who can create some problems or can be kind of like enemies for you. Your opportunity to clear something out. Hold on, I'll take a second and pause because I know that it's dragging a little bit. Even I can see it. Sorry guys, hold on, it might just be the connection. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, let me know if this is a little bit better. But basically, yeah, I mean, like this is a very sensitive trigger point in your chart. So there's either going to be some issues working some stuff out, health, or in terms of relationship with coworkers or habits or what have you, you know? So when you have eclipses here, you might want to look back at what's happened in the past. Whenever you had these in the fall, it looks like you had one, I think that was like around 21 or 22. So it was right on your Saturn and it squared all your stuff last year. Now, at least if it's on your Mars, Mars is saying, well, now I want to push that stuff out. You know, if I want to, you know, clear up my relationship stuff, if I want to fix some of my health stuff, I'm going to kind of push it out. It's just about staying on top of your health and your habits and your goals. The other thing that I would just keep an eye on is that you're ruled obviously by Venus because you're a Taurus rising. And you've got Pluto coming up not just on your Venus, which is a very prominent transit if it rules your chart, but also Pluto's coming into conjunction with your midheaven. So this is about relationships, this is about powerful alignments, this can be about big career changes, and in the next year, you're going to see Pluto come into conjunction with your Venus, so that's going to be like right around February, March, and then you're going to see it, yes, square your ascendant and your descendant. Here's the positive though, right? Is that even though it's going to be back and forth on your Venus, which in itself, I will just tell you, Venus at a 3 is about communication, multiple people, you know, 2 or 3 party situation sometimes. It can be a huge breakthrough where like you're finally feeling like you can make the changes that you want in relationships. It can also mean that there's a huge change that's coming for your career. And then Pluto through Aquarius is going to be really good in this chart because it's just going to try all of your stuff for like freaking years, you know? So yes, it'll square your ascendant at first, but then it's going to try a bunch of stuff and it's going to get a lot easier. So go and start learning about Pluto transit the midheaven. Go and start learning about Pluto transit natal Venus, and know that Venus rules your 6th house of help and service. So it looks like there might be a profound shift in your career because of who you're working with, who you're helping, you know, who you're in a partnership or a relationship with. But my God, that's crazy. You have so much relationship karma. I mean, that's really what this is. And you have to be very careful with a chart like this because you'll throw your back out because of a bad relationship. I mean, like seriously, you'll have really, really bad issues health-wise, where there will be balance issues. There could be issues with like sciatica. You can have all kinds of issues with your kidneys and your digestion. I mean, just Moon, Mars, Saturn, Pluto, you know, all in the 6th house, really not allowing negative emotions to stay in the body. Yeah, the back is the lower back is Libra, and all the squares is tension, right? Stretching, this is like yoga, Pilates, something that's comfortable. When you have that many planets in the 6th house, it's not like somebody who's just going to go and like work out like crazy, although I'm sure you can. I think this is about finding ways to stretch and ease into things and not feeling like you're forcing stuff, you know? Anyway, I hope that that's helpful for you. Chinese medicine, acupuncture, nice. Pluto moon does well with acupuncture. Mars in the 6th house does well with that. And obviously, you know, Venus is the dispositor of all of this, and it's conjunct the midheaven. Like, this is a chart of somebody who goes through a lot of crappy relationships, and then they end up teaching people about relationships, or they go through a lot of health problems, and then they teach people, you know, how to heal their health issues. Like, that's the kind of stuff that you have, and you have to go through those experiences before you bring it into the 10th house. Excellent. I love seeing people with like really gnarly squares like that learn how to kind of work that out. And then, man, Mars retrograde over your North Node. Jesus Christ. This is all going to be about communicating in relationships and maybe learning something as well, doing some traveling. Good luck, Stacy. Keep us updated. Let us know what happens with some of those transits. I've had the Pluto-Venus transit. It was difficult, but it was my chart ruler too, so it ended up actually working out in my favor. The year that I had Pluto transit my Venus is when I was like, oh, I'm starting a business, you know, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing tarot and astrology, and this is what it's called. And I named my business that year. So obviously down the road, it ended up playing out better than I thought. All right, so we've got Kahita. Am I saying this right? Oh, let's see. Name. There we go. Let's see. Why am I not seeing your chart? Sometimes my charts just, I swear they like vanish into midair. Sorry, guys. Where is this? Does this happen with a... let me pull you up here. I'll just add you. See if you're in the chat because I don't have your info. Sorry, guys. Weird. All right, well, if Kahita is here, please let me know because we need your info. So we're gonna go to Iris and then Persephone and Paula. You guys are all on deck. And let's see, we've also got this other person. All right, so Iris says, synastry question. I've got you January 26, 1990 in China. Sorry, guys. Because you guys aren't really hearing what I'm saying. It would feel like that. So it looks like we've got, yeah. So I'm wondering if maybe the best thing to do is, do you think it would be better to pin something here and let people know that we're gonna, okay, we're gonna see if we can restart the stream, guys. So let's see if that helps, fingers crossed. Sorry, guys. Of all the nights, it would be the eclipse readings. It seems like it's a little bit better. Mm. Let me say, it's been good for about 10 seconds. Let's see. You just needed a break. I manifested it. All right, well, maybe we're a little bit better. I didn't want to keep going because I didn't want you guys to miss. Okay, let's, if it starts getting weird, just send me a bunch of like sirens or something. Thank you guys, I appreciate it. We're just doing a good speed check or something. We're just making sure that the connection's good before we keep going. All right, let's see how it goes. So, Iris, if you're still here, and then Persephone, Paula, Danielle, you guys are on deck. All right, Iris. Let's look at your question. Thanks for your patience. Iris, I've got you Libra rising, Sun and Moon in Aquarius. We're looking at a romantic interest for somebody who's born January 15th, 82. And they were born in Santa Cruz. You're both based in Bali. We both have recently left our separate relationships and then connected instantly. There's a lot of mutual interest and chemistry, but I feel like he's not pursuing me right away and is taking some space. I'm open to exploring, but we haven't had any conversations about where this is going. Can you look at our general compatibility as well as how this connection could unfold during the eclipse and thereafter? Well, you've got an eclipse on your ascendant, so I would say this to any Libra rising. It's more about you right now. What are you changing? What are you opening up to? What are you letting go of? What are you embracing, right? Because it's got the polarity to your 7th house. The Libra eclipse is ruled by Venus, which is in your 2nd, which is building on self-esteem, resources, personal style, and also it's good for money. The other thing that I think about is that the eclipse is going to be, you know, very close to his Mars and his Moon on your ascendant. So that eclipse could bring him in. And you're going to see major themes in relationships in about 2 weeks. When you have a full moon in your 7th, in opposition to all of this, and it's going to square Mars, then that's going to be the where are we going, what's happening type of vibe, right? Well, you know, it's very fascinating to me that you guys were born, obviously, you know, what is it, 8 years apart, roughly, but you guys have the same Venus retrograde. Actually, when Venus went retrograde in 1990, I believe that retrograde started in Aquarius and then it went retrograde back into Capricorn. So look at this. You have Venus retrograde. He is Venus retrograde. You guys have all of these planets on top of each other. Even though you're born 8 years apart, it's some of the same retrograde cycles. So, you know, Venus retrograde people, they love differently. There is something that they have to work through internally before they're ready for relationships and partnerships. I mean, obviously, he's like, oh my God, like by you, because you have your sun and your moon right on his Venus. Okay, and his Venus is on your sun moon midpoint, which is like a magic midpoint between your sun and your moon, which you can calculate when somebody's got a planet on that, it triggers something. So look at this, Venus on your midpoint, sun on your Venus. Like what? Mars and moon on the ascendant? Like, I haven't even looked at his chart yet. I'm just looking at yours, you know? I have a theory that the solar eclipse for Libra risings who are ready to let something go with this eclipse and embrace something new about their life have a lot to receive. And whether that is in relationship, if that is in new connections, new clients, new public persona, whatever, if you're willing to let something go, some old identity, within the next 6 months, you're going to see a new relationship emerge. Your guys' synastry is off the chain. Really good. The only thing that's probably confusing for you is that your Mars is in Sagittarius, rules your marriage house, and he's got Neptune conjunct your Mars. Now, unless you guys are like drinking and having sex all the time, that can sometimes be a confusing aspect, because there's this sense of you being like, where is he taking me? Where are we going? What are we doing? Right? But Mars on your ascendant should be about chasing you. And Mars in Libra is not a masculine energy. It's kind of indecisive. It's back and it's forth. It's socializing and all of that stuff. But we'll see how his chart's looking like with yours. But all of the stuff in the first, all of the stuff in the fourth going into the fifth is like unreal. And then when we look at his chart, he's also a Libra rising. So he's got Moon Mars in the first, which means that he is used to initiating relationships with people, seventh house ruler in the first, and it's conjunct the moon. So when he instinctually feels like now is the time, he goes towards it. But that's gotten him in some trouble. He's jumped in some things. He's been passionate about stuff in the past, and all of that squares his Venus, and it squares his nodes, and it squares his sun. At least you guys are both Libra risings, and you're having the eclipses at the same time, which is propelling you into a new way of relating to other people. And this may mean that both parties are being more independent, more assertive, more, kind of doing their own thing and not like losing their identity in others. Venus is his chart ruler, so Pluto's getting really close to Venus, and this means that there's going to be a profound shift that's going to be happening, basically revolving around his home and his living situation over the next couple of years, because of a romantic partner or because of a potential kid. Your North Node is conjunct his Mercury, so you help him learn about communicating and expressing himself and sharing, his feelings and his ideas. All of your planets land in his fifth house. And when you are a woman and you have your Venus in the same sign as the sun, you're attracted to the way that they look, right? And then he's got his Venus in the same sign as your sun. I think there's way too many synchronicities here. I feel like for both of you guys to be Libra risings and to be coming out of relationships when you've had Mercury retrogrades and eclipses up the yin yang for the last year, relationships were not supposed to be easy. And South Node eclipses in Libra can mean that there are certain relationships falling apart because other ones are coming together. So really, in the back of my mind, I look at this and I go, what the heck does the composite chart say? Okay, so composite, midpoint, Libra rising, Sun in Aquarius, conjunct Venus retrograde in Capricorn, right? And probably the best aspect you can have in a composite chart is the Sun-Venus conjunction, and you guys have that. The only problem is Pluto's hovering around your Venus and your Sun, which basically means there is a sense of you guys having to deal with the past. You have to let go of the past. You have to be able to work through previous relationships you've been in. Maybe you met each other, but it's not the right time, And this is about you guys meeting now and having a huge breakthrough and being able to kind of heal and kind of look at it and go, wow, I was so brokenhearted over this relationship, or haven't been able to move on. And then we meet each other and we realize we had to go through those lessons before we came together type of stuff, right? And you'll have an eclipse on your descendant next spring, and you'll also have a retrograde there. And if you guys aren't ready to be together now, there will probably be a sense of naturally coming together then. Okay, so first I would see, well, what happens in the next month between now and the 17th? But next spring, when this retrograde business is going on in March, and then when this eclipse happens, also at the end of March, that seems incredibly prominent, because at least Pluto was off of your Venus, Pluto was off of your Sun. Maybe you had to learn how to be friends first, how to connect more and kind of not move forward in the romantic stuff. But March, April of next year, you could be more ready to do that. And if I found somebody who had, if I had a client come to me and they had this, I would be like, this is a very significant relationship. Not only the activation of the midpoint, but the Sun-Venus and the fact that your composite is Sun and Venus means that this might be a very significant relationship for you. Nothing is guaranteed. But there is something here that I feel like you guys are having to help each other heal and work through and learn about the next step in relationships. And there's something very prominent here. So see what happens, because there is definitely an indication that there's a lot that you guys have very unusual synastry and midpoint astrology, like very, very unusual. You have some of the stuff I see when people get married. Okay. Let me know what happens. And like when he wants to go after something, he will, but I think he's learned that that's gotten him in some trouble in the past, to be honest with you. All right, so we've got Palace of Persephone. Let me make sure this is right. And then we have Paula and Danielle. I love that name. That was for Talisa. Let me pull this up. Well, he's learned that that's gotten him in some trouble because he's ran into things too quickly before in the past. There we go. And then let's open this one. And I want to make sure these are right because there are so many synastries, but you know, I'm not surprised. All right. So for you, am I saying your name correctly? Talisa? You're welcome, Iris. Okay, so for your chart, I have you here 6/26/93 at 9:17 p.m. And that was in Colorado Springs. So Capricorn rising, Sun in Cancer, and it looks like Dustin. Nope, that's not the right one. It's the same one. Let's see. Let's pull that up. There we go. Talisa partner. And then your partner, November 2nd, 86, 3:35 a.m. Okay. Let's read your love note. Let's see what she says. Okay. Thank you for offering these. Life has been Saturn returny. My husband and I met in 2018. I moved across the country at the end of 2019. 2020 had a toxic relationship. 2021 we reconnect. 2022 we marry. Our entire relationship has taken place while living at his mom's while he assisted in raising his niece. Now mom and niece are moving on out of state and we are in limbo. Is our connection karmic? Just a good time or a long time? Well, all the pieces feel up in the air. We have not had time to really build a foundation, just he and I. Is it time for a relationship to finally begin, or is it not in the stars? Thank you for clarity. So just to confirm, you guys are married, right? My husband and I got married. Okay, so like since 2018, you've been going back and forth. You got Saturn in your first house, you know, so a lot of your Saturn return, at least by Placidus, has been a lot of defining who you are, you know, your needs, especially financially, you know, outside of a relationship, right? And you have been having all kinds of stuff going on. You know, you're about to have an eclipse that's coming in conjunction with your moon, which rules your 7th house and the 10th house. So when you say like, oh, is it not in the stars? Having a South Node eclipse on your 7th house ruler in the midheaven is kind of like 3:45 a.m. Thank you. That's not going to change much, but we'll change it. Having that particular eclipse can have you questioning or wondering, you know, is there going to be some kind of a shift going on in my relationship? You know, that is possible. It's in the 8th house, so it's more about joint resources and stuff right now, and whether or not there's a sense of breaking away from someone. Equally, you know, Pluto's been in your first house opposing Mercury the last couple of years. Mars is going to come into conjunction with Mercury, which means that you're going to be going back and forth with a partner about where you guys are living and whether or not you're moving or if you're getting your own space together and what you're doing. And Mars will retrograde in opposition to Pluto. So to me, it looks like it can be frustrating, the back and forth trying to figure out like the home or the relationship situation over the next couple of months, and I would be patient. As a Capricorn rising, you want to look at the full moon that's actually coming in Aries on the 17th of October, because that's going to be very close to his north node, and it will be in your whole sign fourth, which is going to be a decision that's coming up where that eclipse, that full moon in Aries is going to square all your Capricorn, and it's going to square your Mercury. And for me, it's like almost maybe you going like, okay, if you can't help me do it, then I'm going to do it myself, or I'm going to go back home, or I'm going to go and be with family. You know, there's going to be something like that that's kind of coming up. That's going to be that pressure point. Be very diplomatic if you can over the next month. That's the key. Otherwise, yes, there can be some kind of relationship change, but it doesn't mean that it has to be definitive. It could mean that you guys are both kind of like staying in two separate places, or, you know, you're deciding, okay, you know, I'm going to make the decision about where we're going. The next 2 years with Saturn and Neptune going into Aries for a lot of Cap risings is going to be, how do we figure out where home is? How do we get that kind of defined? You know, where can we kind of put down some roots and kind of feel a little bit more stable? And Aries is new. So it's like not being around, you know, his family. Maybe it's being closer to somewhere that's familiar to you. Sometimes when we have Saturn going to the fourth house, we go and we visit family on our side, our mother's side, or we go back to the city or the state that we were born in. So that can be coming up for you as well. Looking at their astrology, so let's flip this around a little bit. Their Libra rising. Are you Libra risings okay? Okay, so that's possible. So Libra rising is what he is. He's got his sun in Scorpio and his moon in Scorpio, and Pluto is retrograde back in the fourth house. So I could see him considering moving home. His relationship is going to be the seventh, and Saturn and Neptune are going to hit that over the next 2 years. So there definitely is like a restart happening in a relationship. Like that's happening. You're going to see that spring of 2025. You're going to see that going into 2026. And this is probably going to be about a partner, you know, I think as like a Libra rising, this is like expecting more from their partners, you know. You know, Saturn is about commitment. So it's like, okay, you know, we're married, but, you know, what else are we doing? What else are we creating? And it can mean that this is a time where, you know, he's recognizing he needs to do more work in relationships, or that, you know, he needs to work harder to be able to kind of partner with them. Otherwise, there can be some issues. So I would wait and see what happens actually, I guess in sequential order. I would wait and see what happens around the 17th of October when you have a full moon on his north node, you know, square all this stuff. And I would also see what happens in the spring. But because Mars rules his seventh and Mars is in the fifth house sextile, this is a chart that seems, at least to me, more like, you know, do we work through it? Do we learn how to have fun and like be in love again? You know, do we talk about having a kid? Because Mars rules his seventh house north node. So there's going to be either dating a younger person, being creative together, or figuring out like, you know, how to have a family. That could be a huge theme with the eclipses going through the fifth house for the next couple of years. And he's a difficult one. Sun, Scorpio, Moon, Venus, Mercury, all in the second house. And yeah, I could see that. He's very talented if he's got all those planets in the second house square Mars. Intense, brooding, moody. I think probably, you know, Saturn in the fifth house this year, trining his Venus, is like he's really trying to feel like he's putting out or creating the time to be able to like make music, or to be performing, or to like make that his thing, you know. But your astrology together is awesome. I like the moon Jupiter on the ascendant. I really also feel like your Venus in opposition to all of his Scorpio keeps him coming back. Your sun on his midheaven means that you do have a say in the direction of where things are going, like with the future of your guys' career and your life and all that stuff, and it trines. So you have enough water in your chart to handle the moodiness, you know? You can do that. It's just, you know, he is your Saturn North Node connection. So your North Node on Saturn, you're teaching him how to move. You're teaching him how to communicate. You're teaching him how to kind of be flexible. And with his Saturn on your North Node, that's going to be in your 11th house, maybe your whole sign 12. So sometimes being with him can feel a little isolating. But, you know, when you have your sun in the 6th house, it means you're subservient to your spouse in this lifetime. I don't know if you know that, but it means that you're there to kind of help them, help take care of them, help them with work, help them with daily routines, all of that stuff, and you have that. So to an extent, you're like, yes, I will help make your life easier, but you know, you need to respect me, or you need to, you know, kind of take my feelings into consideration too. And I would just pay attention, because I think the Mars retrograde for a Libra rising is going to be changes in their career, and it's going to go retrograde in your 7th house, which means your partner's goals are going to shift gears, so he's going to go in a different direction, right? And I think it's a good idea that you guys move. I definitely think it's a good idea that you guys move. I just know that he either is going to need a partner to be more responsible in the next 2 years, or he's going to be in a situation where he's going to see what it takes to really try to make a relationship work. And I think you're going to see a lot more stability after like spring of next year, you know? Happy to help. I love that. Hopefully that's helpful. And it looks like you guys have a huge influence on each other's career with all like the midheaven stuff in both of the charts. So I'm curious to see how that kind of manifests for you. Like, you know, having all that like Aries next year can be really beneficial and helpful to like do some kind of work together, you know? Good luck. Keep me updated. All right, so we have Paula, and then Danielle and Sahad. Let's see. All right. So Paula, let's pull up Paula. What's up, Paula? When was the last time I chatted with you? Been a little bit. She's a Scorpio rising. She's got Moon in Virgo and Sun in Aries. And Paula says, there you go. I'm feeling very anxious about potentially changing jobs. I don't know if I should start looking to make a move now or wait till early spring. I also want to make one more push over the next 6 to 12 months to make my work as a content creator get traction. I do photography and videos of hiking destinations and national parks, and I want to make more educational content. Should I focus on that till spring and wait to make a move in my corporate job? I don't know. I'm having such a hard time deciding. Okay. Here's just some food for thought. So on one hand, you know, the sun rules your career, and you have the North Node coming into connection with your sun. This means that it's activating you and preparing you over the next couple of months to really focus on 5th house things. What can I create? What's mine? Aries, what's adventurous? How can I be the star? How can I go and be out in the sun and in, you know, the elements and all of that stuff, and be like getting out there and doing my thing? This is about where you're taking a chance and you're doing something new. Aries is striking the match, right? It's entrepreneurial, ruler of the 10th house. So this is telling me that it's kind of getting you to gear up for this right now. And then in the new year, Saturn will come into Aries. And then you're going to have Neptune come into Aries. And this is creating more focus and commitment to film and videography stuff that is yours. So I think that that's the direction that you go in, right? Also, you know, as a Scorpio rising, you're going to have your chart ruler Mars go retrograde. So Mars will go retrograde here at the beginning of December, right on your midheaven. So if you're going to go back, right, to like a job, you know, why not do it during a Mars retrograde, right? I mean, money is going to be your 2nd house. So you will have just come through a Mercury retrograde in the 2nd house. So if you're feeling tight on funds in December, you could go, okay, you know, I'm giving myself until about December. And then if I can't, you know, swing it, or if I'm having a difficult time, you know, then I will go and look for a job. I feel like that's what I would do with that transit. I also think that, you know, Mars retrogrades, it's not just about you. It's also about things revolving around your schedule. See, to me, this seems like you can't juggle. You won't be able to juggle both, because then you're putting your health in jeopardy when you've got Mars connected to your 6th house. You don't want to do that. There can also be a sense of being like, well, I'm going to travel back to a place I've been before, because Mars is going to go into Cancer. So when it goes into Cancer, it's going to trine Saturn. So it could mean, well, I'm going to travel to a place that, I wasn't, I haven't been in a long time, or I'm going to go and reconnect with a mentor or a teacher, or I'm going to go and do some like training, or maybe I do some traveling, or I do some teaching, so that can help fund some of the things that I'm doing. But unless you have a really negative Jupiter transit, you're not going to have issues with money. Now, Mercury will retrograde in your second house at the end of November going into December. Yeah, money can get tight then, sure, especially when it scores Saturn in your fifth. But you have some really nice kind of like negotiating, like Mercury and the Sun coming into your second house in opposition to Jupiter. Like, I wonder, can you go and pull some gigs where you're doing some stuff where, you're saying, hey, I'll come to you, I'll shoot this stuff, will you pay for my travel? Will you host me? Will you do this? Like, there can be ways for you to negotiate stuff, or maybe you're going to go and do cinematography or video on location, and you can work while you're there and you're doing some of the stuff that you're filming for your personal gig. In my opinion, and I'm going to have Mars retrograde in my 10th house. And so I've been thinking about this a lot because it's going to go from my 11th to my 10th. It's going to be about me scaling back on some work stuff to make time for the things that I feel like are more important right now for me, things that I want to be doing. And so if you can look at it from that perspective and see that Mars is going to trine your Sun, from a whole sign, 10th house to 6th house, what am I making time for? And what's the direction of my work really going in? And yeah, I may scale back a little bit or work part-time or kind of, take some time off here and there, but I'm doing it because I have a project or something that's going to be more significant in the long run. And it's about where you're willing to kind of maybe cut some time off of the jobs that you've been working, or you're willing to kind of make your money go a little bit further so you can do something that you really want to do. But once you get to the end of December, sure, of course, you could see that you're in a situation that you're like, okay, I will go back. But if not, then it's going to be about traveling and working on some of your creative stuff. And you'll probably see some of your best stuff when Mars is trining Saturn. So for example, Mars is coming into a trine of Saturn right now, right? You're going to see it in the retrograde that it's going to come back and it'll trine again. And that looks like that's going to be happening around the end of February. And then it's going to trine one more again. And that's going to be around the end of March because it's going to take a little while to heat up. So it can mean that that's when you're putting stuff out. Maybe you've been traveling and working on stuff and then things are coming out, February, March of 2025. And when you see a very strong transit to your Sun, you're going to have a career change. Well, Paula, look what's going on. Mercury retrograde over your Sun, Venus retrograde over your Sun, North Node just left the conjunction to your Sun. Now it's in Pisces, conjunct Venus and Mercury. Oh, you're getting paid to be able to do film and photography work. You have clients now that like what you're doing. They want what you have. Maybe you sell some stuff that's like stock, video and photography. Maybe not the most glamorous thing, but you're able to sell some of that stuff. I think if you just had the North Node on your Sun, I'd be like, now's your time to shine. But a retrograde there, and then also Saturn there, oh, and then you're going to have an eclipse there. I mean, like, let me put it this way. Nobody will be able to deny or delay what we need to be starting that's new in the spring. And for you, yeah, it's in your 5th house of personal creative projects, but it's your whole sign 6th. Daily routine, service, It can also be about things connecting to health and wellness and hospitality. Who knows? You might have some hotels that are like, we are wanting to incentivize people to come here and like go hiking here. Can you shoot this? I would be looking at anything connecting to health retreats. I would be looking at things that's connecting to Aries related stuff. So it's going to be warmer, drier climate. It could be things that are kind of like deserty or, international brands, especially connected with like hospitality, that kind of stuff. I'm going to do a whole thing on Saturn and Neptune and Aries because I've been doing a lot of research on what it's going to mean and what it's going to bring up. So stay tuned. I'll put some of that stuff out in the future. But for now, hopefully that gives you some food for thought. At least from my perspective, the Mars retrograde it is worth making a little bit of a sacrifice for something that could be more productive in the long term. I live in the desert now, just moved this year. Start finding where there's people hiking, right? And start seeing where there can be sports rentals and other things, or maybe where people are taking like dune buggies. That would be very Aries. Where maybe people are going and, wanting to see red rock and other things like that. That's very Aries. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Paula. Keep us updated. I want to hear what happens. All right, so we have Danielle, and then we have Sahad, and then we have Sage Moon. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. All right, and then it looks like I know this was a synastry, and you were asking about, I think it was the Libra. Let's pull that. So that was 10/3/81. There we go. We don't have the time. I'm going to do noon. 10/3/81. Okay. All right. So Danielle says, feeling sad about our no communication. And let's take a look here. So first things first, Danielle, this eclipse, my good friend, is in a really prominent part of your chart. Okay. So the eclipse for Taurus is 6 houses away, which means clearing out imbalances in relationships. And then for a Cancer rising, it's going to be very close to your Saturn and your Jupiter, which the South Node is there right now. So it's trying to clear out old relationships in the past, or maybe we reminisce or we think about people a little bit more, or sometimes people kind of come back, right? So, you know, eclipses in the 4th house of Libra, they bring up a lot of like, yeah, feelings of, you know, what we've lost, what we're missing, people from the past. And it's kind of the setup for, you know, the South Node now hitting Saturn and Jupiter. Like you're in a pivotal time between now and January where if you're meant to let somebody go, you will. And if somebody's meant to kind of come back in, they will. Meditations on love and relationships is a huge theme because the eclipse is going to focus on the Sun, Mercury, Cazimi. And even look, Mercury conjunct Saturn, you know, Mercury conjunct Jupiter. I can't let them go. I'm thinking about them. Where are they? You know, and like just the feelings that you're having. And you'll feel the moods and the shifts kind of happening throughout the week. And then there's the Cazimi, which is like, okay, well, if I'm making space, you know, like what else can come in that's going to be brand new? And obviously in your chart, I mean, we've talked about how you have your chart ruler in opposition to Saturn, where there's intermittent periods where you kind of come together with people and you go apart. You come together and you go apart. But the next 2 years is really significant for your relationships as Saturn hits your moon. And it's probably going to be about a new relationship status and being in a partnership in a very big way. So the moods are basically kind of expected right now. When we look at the transits with the other person, nope, that's not it. There you go. So looks like they have a Sun conjunct your Saturn, Saturn conjunct your Saturn, Jupiter. You guys have Venus, Uranus. So it could have been like that hot and cold back and forth. And obviously Venus in opposition to Venus and the Sun. So there's definitely like a lot of, you know, like back and forth here. So let's take a look. Let's look at the composite chart because that's going to tell me a little bit more if we don't really have their exact natal time. I'm going to focus more on the placements, not necessarily the houses. So this is a Cancer Sun, and the moon is going to be really important. So there is a South Node moon connection. So it means that, you know, it is possible there can be some changes in this dynamic that, you know, it's like, well, you know, we might have social connections or there's things that kind of tie us together, but it's not consistent or emotionally stable. In my mind, the time that I would watch to see if there's going to be any potential reconnection is going to be probably when Mars is retrograding over these planets. Mercury, North Node, and the Sun. What's up, Sonia? So I would say the pre-shadow is going to start around the 23rd of October. You're going to have Mars and the Moon hit this, opposed Pluto. Now, this can be about healing and kind of finally cutting loose, you know, or releasing yourself from feeling like attached to this person as well. But Mars retrograde over the North Node, which can, you know, bring passion, creativity, maybe some kind of party, social connection where you guys might see each other. I would say December 17th. Through the Mars retrograde over your Sun, which will trine Saturn and also Venus, which gets really strong the end of January into the beginning of February. And then there will be a Venus retrograde that's going to trine that as well. Now, Pisces can be about dissipating, but it can be about reconnecting and getting some clarity as to where somebody has been. All of that's going to go retrograde right over your moon in preparation for Saturn. So it might mean that maybe somebody's working through some stuff until it takes, you know, spring of next year. And then you're kind of like, I'm not doing the back and forth. You're either in or you're out. You know, what are you doing? And your partner's supposed to be assertive, right? Because seeing that, let's go back to your chart. Sorry. There we go. Seeing that Saturn is in its exaltation, right? It's conjunct Jupiter. It's somebody who's going to be like, yes, I want, you know, relationship. I want commitment, or I want to be able to focus on home and like domestic things. And like they'll like the fact that you're assertive and you know what you want and that you go after what you want. They're not going to be passive. And also somebody who, you know, may come around after a period of time. Mars retrogrades in, you know, or over natal placements, I think in a midpoint chart can be a really pivotal turning point where if you guys are meant to connect or you're meant to get clarity or kind of clear something out, then you may very well do that. So I would see what happens around that time and know that right now your lesson with the eclipse is just being like, look, you know, I have to let something go. If they're on their own path, they're on their own path. I can't be fixated on as to whether they come in or not. When you have a powerful transit involving Saturn, that's when basically like people can come into your life. Well, the South Node's about to hit that, right? The Moon's about to hit that. And you're the Moon and they're Saturn. So it can mean that you're like maybe sitting and meditating on it, being just like, whatever you got to do, you got to work through your shit. Like, I'm not waiting for you anymore. I hope you come back. But by the same token, like, this is just too much for me emotionally. So I'm just going to like turn you loose and hope you figure it out, you know? And like really help you move forward. And like the truth is, you know, when the South Node is going through your fourth house, especially if you have Saturn there, emotions and moods feel so much heavier than they normally do. So much heavier than they normally do. And I think about how like planets are going to square Mars, you know? So this is like past relationships and what's heavy and what feels like drowning. And then there's like, you know, Mars in the focal point of a T-square. That's like, are you going to push past that and be like, I don't want to be sad anymore. I don't want to mope around anymore, you know, and feel like you're kind of tapping into this much more kind of Aries moon, assertive, okay, you know, basically going after what you want vibe, right? It can be hard for some Cancer risings with the Mars retrograde in opposition to Pluto to be like, man, like, why haven't they changed? Where are they? When is it going to come back? But I'm telling you, you're going to make it more difficult on yourself with the eclipses in the South Node and the fourth. I would rather like you clean your house, get rid of anything or everything that reminds you of old partners out of your space, right? And recalibrate your space. Because with the North Node on the Moon, it wants you to be like, okay, I'm claiming, you know, my authority. I'm claiming my space. I am stepping into, you know, my personal kind of, I guess like, this new persona, right? Aries is what's new. And welcoming a new status in your life. So that can be job status, that can be relationship status, all of that stuff. And if you think it's crazy now, wait till Mars starts opposing Pluto. Then it's going to be crazy because you're going to be like, man, I just don't understand why this person won't change. No. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. And also as a Taurus, like you have some good transits coming up. I mean, Venus going through Scorpio, Mars going through Cancer. I mean, this could be a time where you could meet somebody else in a heartbeat. Right? And you will look back probably at this time in about 12 to 18 months when Saturn's on your moon and you're going to be in a new relationship and you're like, why did I waste so much time waiting for that guy? Like, that's probably what will happen. You'll see. You'll especially start seeing that right around spring of next year, planets retrograde over that. And you have the opportunity to have a new status change. Yeah, South Node in the 4th house, that's difficult. Definitely burn some incense, light some stuff to kind of lighten up the mood, you know? It can definitely help. Otherwise, you just end up feeling really heavy being at home all the time. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Danielle. I have Sahad and then Sage Moon. And let's see, so let's pull up Sahad. Let's see. There we go. We got you, and we got your partner. Another synastry. So you're a Cancer rising, Sun in Aquarius, and, well, this is whole sign. Hold on, let me make this Placidus. There we go. So we got you, Cancer rising, Aquarius, and the moon in Scorpio. And then your partner is April 7th, 82. You're welcome. Let's see what they have to say. What's up, Candace? You been reading for me? Okay, I've got you. February 16th, 1990, 1:15 p.m. in Kuwait. And then you've got a potential partner that is April 7th, 82, between 6 and 7. So I use 6:30 as well, or 6:20, but I'll use 6:30. So I think you already are aware of the complexity of my chart and the struggles that I've had in regards to relationships and partnerships. And the reading that I've done with in the past has focused on when I will be meeting a potential partner. I was hoping you can look at the gentleman's chart and let me know a little bit more about compatibility. There's a lot going on with squares between, let's see here, you kind of get cut off here, between my Capricorn placements and his Libra. All right, let's take a look. Let's make this 6:30. Because I realize that it's 6:20. There we go. Okay, well, squares are not necessarily a bad thing, okay? So it depends on what planets are involved in the squares. I'm going to tell you off the bat, anybody born in the early 80s has a significant amount of karma in relationships. Why? Pluto and Saturn, okay? Both in Libra. So those are some heavy hitters off the bat. 2 is he also happens to have Mars there as well. Now, what is Libra for a Cancer rising, right? Libra is home, family, the past, domestic zone. This guy's complicated because he's got the Sun and Mercury in Aries, so that's very much I am, I do, you know, I'm going, I think, I want, I need, like that's him. The Sun is very strong when it's there, and Mercury is very close to the Sun. This is in opposition to his Saturn, so this just tells me off the bat, I haven't even looked at his time yet. There's some back and forth in relationships, there's some karma in relationships. You know, I'm wondering, has this person already been separated or divorced once because he's got Mars, Saturn, and Pluto all in opposition to his Sun. Squaring the nodes. So he's had to learn how to incorporate more of the North Node in Cancer, which you can help him with your ascendant. Learning how to do home, family, domestic stuff, moving out of heaviness, long-term responsibility, you know, things. So your Saturn and your Venus are very close to the South Node, which means you guys have some karma. There is a sense of, with Venus on the South Node, familiar, you know, somebody familiar from the past. It feels easy. It's natural. You're just inclined to them. Saturn's a little different. It means that there can be some lessons. You're teaching each other something. You're learning lessons from the past. And you got Moon Jupiter here. So, you know, his Jupiter right on your moon in the 5th house is kind of sexy. It's romantic. It feels good. It's passionate. It's intense. This also trines his Venus. You have got his Juno in your 7th house, very close to Mars and Uranus, so it can feel like, oh, somebody who's willing maybe to bring up themes revolving around dating and commitment, where you've had a lot of maybe instability in the past. Venus conjunct the Sun, good for relationships, you know, attraction. And it's his Mars, Moon, Saturn here. Usually with a placement like this stimulates something where it's like somebody's got to move, or somebody's relocating to be with somebody, or, you know, there is like a lot of home and family themes that can kind of come up. Yes, it squares all of your stuff. I am not so worried about Mars and Venus squaring, although it's wide, because that's friction and chemistry. What's more challenging to deal with is going to be the Moon square Mars. It's going to be Saturn square Venus. It's going to be Saturn square Saturn. It's going to be Pluto square Venus, you know? And I look at this and I'm like, well, what's going to create the conflict? Family issues, you know, living apart, partners and relationships from the past, or maybe they're triggering things where you're like, oh, I've done this before, I'm not doing that again, right? That's the kind of stuff that can kind of come up. I've heard a lot of astrologers say in synastry, Saturn square Venus is very hard to overcome, and that usually the Venus person feels like they're not getting the love that they need from the Saturn person, and that eventually it can grow cold. He's the Saturn person, you're the Venus person, right? While there are some things that help neutralize this, like trines to your sun, trines to your north node, right? There is also Jupiter sextiling your stuff, but you're not really getting a lot of support beyond that. He doesn't have anything really in Earth that's legitimate. He's got Chiron, but he doesn't have other Earth placements that can trine. So in his chart, he's a Libra rising. So what's working in your favor is that he has come here to learn how to have relationships. He's in a peak relationship period time right now with the eclipses and the North Node that's going through Aries. But man, he's got some shit relationship karma. Mars, Moon, Saturn, Pluto. Please tell me he's already been divorced. Are you culturally different in some way? I mean, do you guys have different backgrounds? It looks like you're around the same place, so maybe not. He likes being around you with your Moon conjunct his Jupiter. He can find love very easily with you because your sun is in his 5th house. And I think that because he's got so many planets in the 12th house, he was either going to attract somebody who was going to be very spiritual and into metaphysics and maybe even, you know, karmic, mystical things, nonprofit things, art-related things, or he was going to date somebody who was just like downright crazy. You know, with Mars and the Moon in the 12th house, it tells me that he's had some like emotionally abusive relationships, or maybe there's issues revolving around like mother figures that can be kind of coming up for him as well. And all of that squares the South Node in his whole sign 4th. So it's like there's some mom issues here. And so maybe he's learned some emotional patterning from his relationship with his upbringing with his parents that has influenced the types of people that he's dated, and it's created some major issues in relationships. Oh, and by the way, he's got Saturn on his ascendant exalted in opposition to an exalted sun. So that means that sometimes he does know better, and he brings in relationships with younger people who are kind of like eager, and he's like, you know, he can be kind of conservative and cautious. And then other times it can mean that, you know, he jumps into relationships, Sun and Mercury on the descendant, and then, you know, somebody's like, yeah, let's do it. And then, you know, he gets kind of scared and he backs out. So there's a teeter-totter effect here. Careful with this one, because this one will seem like he's like, yeah, let's do it. And then you kind of start to see him pull back a little bit, you know. But whole sign, 6th house Venus, you know, Mars, Pluto, that kind of stuff. I wonder if he has had a broken engagement or a separation already, because he's got a lot of the markers for that. South Node is coming into conjunction with Mars, so he's going through some karma in a relationship, and so there is some karmic stuff happening within an existing relationship or someone he's meeting or was supposed to meet, and Saturn just left his Venus, so that's there too. I think that you highlight communication, you highlight traveling, you highlight romance. You know, the squares are difficult. And I think even beyond the Saturn squares Saturn, you know, by the way, if you have planets in Capricorn, even though Capricorn is the domicile, he's got stuff in exaltation. So having like Saturn exalted is going to trump your Saturn, unfortunately. So it means that if we look at your chart, we flip it around, there is like a sense of his planets carrying more weight. So when it comes to home, family, domestic stuff, you know, meeting each other's parents, things revolving around where the future of the relationship can go, that's going to cause, like, that's going to be a huge influence, basically. And I'll tell you that his relationship with his family, one of his parents, especially his mom, looks really, really colorful. So I wonder if mom has created some issues revolving around relationships, and whether she spoiled him or there's some issues in terms of expectations. There's definitely some weird stuff there. hopefully that's helpful. Let me know. Let me know what you think or if you have any questions. All right, we got Sage Moon and then Susan. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. All right, so we meet again. I've got you here on January 9th, 73. Let me pull you up with the transits. There we go. All right, so let's see what Katie has to say. So my Chiron is in Aries, 12 degrees in the first house. Something tells me I need a reading around this eclipse. What themes can you see playing out in my chart? Any insight on how I'm perceived versus how I want to be seen? The impact I has on my work, friendships, relationships. I've been feeling pretty detached these days. What's the haps? Thank you so much. Of course. Thank you for your patience. All right, so a couple things. Yes, you're right. If you're having an eclipse that is in opposition to a natal placement, it's going to have an effect, right? And so this is a good example of the eclipse. What is Libra? Libra is a mirror, right? It's a projection. It's how other people perceive us or how we look to other people or how we are in relationship. So with the solar eclipse in Libra, pretty much on the midway point between Pluto and Uranus, it's saying that there's something being seated revolving around your relationship to other people. Romantic partners, business partners, your what you sell, basically your marketplace, what you have to offer, art, services, whatever you can give people. Like, this is setting the stage for that. So we can draw people in. So like, this is a good time to set intentions for, hey, I want more clients. I want more visibility. I want people to see me in this way or perceive me in that way, or I want to collaborate with others or, bring in romance. Especially for a Capricorn, because you're going to hear it's career oriented, but it's about forwarding your career through who you're working with. Now, this eclipse is going to be at 10 degrees. So it opposes your Chiron, where I would almost say your reading is almost like a Aries rising reading, where I talk about this on Sunday. But if you want to heal this feeling of isolation, you have to meet other people, right? You have to go and connect with other people. The 7th house is like when we go out to dinner with our partners after work, or we go and grab beers with our friends, after the end of the week, or we go and we have to meet other people somewhere. So you're having to set the intention to be like, okay, I'm going out, even though it's South Node eclipses, it's still going to be about going out and doing things. And when this eclipse comes in at 10, down the road, 6 months from now, we're going to see Venus go retrograde around 10 degrees of Aries in conjunction to your Chiron, where the more you've been interacting with other people, now you're like, okay, I'm getting more visibility, or I'm feeling more secure, or, I'm feeling pursued. People want me. They want what I have. They're seeing what I'm putting out there. And when Venus and Chiron come into conjunction, they can heal. There can be something we can heal revolving around feeling isolated or separate or rejected. And then Mercury, your 7th house lord, will retrograde as well. And they're all going to come back into Pisces, and they're going to sit on your ascendant, which means you're going to go, okay, now I have the opportunity to say, I've gotten feedback from what other people think about my art. I've gotten feedback from dating. I've gotten feedback from clients. And now I'm deciding who I am and what I'm going to be, because it's all going to be in Pisces on the North Node. This is what somebody told me, or they gave me this, maybe you go and you talk with somebody who's going to be helping you do some marketing or some branding, and then you're going to be like, okay, now I'm going to make these changes. So the eclipses are very active then. And then obviously, then you have an eclipse in Aries. And it's going to be, it looks like right around 9 degrees. So it's conjunct your Chiron. So I would spend the next 6 months getting feedback from people. I would maybe, talk to a coach, talk to somebody with marketing, talk to a therapist, talk to an astrologer. I'd be getting feedback from other people. Virgo can be people who critique things, who can help you make your work better, who can help you, become more marketable, who can help you get more clarity, right? And then next year, you'll probably start to see some of that stuff come in. Also, the eclipse at 10, it squares your north and south node. So when planets square the nodes, That means that we have to do something here to initiate where we want to go. North Node of Capricorn, 10th house, fame, recognition, being able to be seen, being productive, being successful. And it's going to square the South Node in Cancer, which is hiding out at home, not being seen, staying in the past. So people for the next 6 months or so are going to come into your life. That's going to help put you into the more of like the 10th house vibe. And even though, it is Placidus 10th house, it is going to be, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's going to be whole house 11th. So it means that this could also be about joining groups, societies, collaborations, going to, like group art meets and seeing other people, putting their stuff out there. And like, you might have to go with other people and mix and mingle to do that. You might have to participate in some group related things, right? You'll have your time to shine. I think you're going to like Mars retrograde in your 5th. That's going to give you more time to focus on my projects, me being seen, what I'm doing. And this will trine Saturn, which is going to be really good. You'll have a lot of time to focus on really kind of curating something that's like very personal for you throughout that process. But I think that's how the eclipse energy is going to kind of go. And I hope it gives you a little bit more insight in how to kind of navigate that time. It can be so frustrating with Saturn and Neptune kind of connect to your ascendant. It's still a little kind of fuzzy right now. And Saturn on your moon too. So when those cross your ascendant next year, you're going to be like, ta-da, here I am in the spring, like kind of like a butterfly coming out of their cocoon. It's like your grand reveal. All right, so we've got Susan and then Jaron, or Jerone. I'm not sure which one it is. Although I think I've read for you before. What's up, Susan? I don't even know if you're here or not. It might be past your bedtime. Maybe not. Every time I look at your chart, I hear your voice because you have a very distinguishable voice. You're welcome, Katie. Oh, hey, Kaja, I did not get any of your personal information, so you need to send that to me in the memo when you get a reading. So can you please send that in the chat? All right, so Susan is 10/12/62 at 9:07 a.m. in Louisiana. She says, just a quick birthday read. I really need a long one. I have been struggling. Sure hope things get better soon. All right, Susan. So here's the deal, girlfriend. Yes, your birthday is coming up, so happy almost birthday. Maybe we'll take a peek at that. But you're ruled by Pluto, you're ruled by Mars, right? So Pluto has been in opposition to Mars where there has been drama. The usual extended family, neighbors, communication, intensity revolving around that. Getting real close to your Saturn too, so it is the setup for direct communication with people, maybe feeling a little mentally frazzled. And you've also had Uranus right on your descendant where it's been shaking things up in regards to relationships with other people. And then you top it all off with an eclipse that's going to be right between Mercury and your Sun. Girl! Well, the North Node coming into conjunction with your moon, I like. I feel like this is about you feeling a little bit more feisty. This is about you kind of speaking up a little bit more, being a little less Libra-like and a little less tolerant of, some people's kind of BS. That North Node moon connection is really activating this Mars transit in Cancer in your 8th house where you're like, okay, I'm making a change. I'm transforming emotionally. Maybe it's going to be about me traveling. Maybe it's going to be about me learning something. Maybe it's going to be about me doing some kind of training. Big changes with that retrograde for Libras too, big career changes. So I could see that stuff kind of happening for you. Thankfully in the background, you do have Saturn that is coming into a trine with Neptune. It is coming into a trine with Venus in your ascendant over like the next year. So I could see home stuff, property stuff stabilize, especially in the spring. You're going to see that get a little bit easier. The other thing is, it kind of reads like a Sag rising, just had an eclipse in your 4th house. So changes on the home front, changes going on with family, maybe with one of your children, right? Let's take a look. So you're going into a Capricorn 3rd house year ruled by Saturn. So you have your natal Saturn in the 4th. So it looks like the next year, okay, so your birthday starts in October, mid-October. The next year, there's a lot of dealing with siblings. There's a lot of dealing with contracts, communications, neighbors. And because Saturn rules your 3rd and your 4th, and it's going to be in your 5th house, it's going to be how you're communicating with your kids and how you're going back and forth with them and working through some issues, right? And then Pluto's going to go into conjunction with your Saturn as well. Wow. So moving, traveling, these things kind of happen. Maybe changes with vehicles. You can see that also with a 3rd house year. Saturn will be your time lord. So you're going to want to know when Saturn is in Aries, which will be brief, you know, when Saturn is in Pisces. When it's in Pisces, it's better for you. And you're going to see about half the year it's going to be in Pisces, trining your Venus. So home stabilizes, family stuff could get better. You can also feel a little bit more emotionally secure, better with boundaries. Where you're going to want to watch out, Susan, is going to be when Mars starts coming into an opposition with Pluto. And this could be some intense financial stuff. So you're going to start seeing this brewing around October 21st to your Mars return. Okay, which will oppose Pluto around November 4th. And then you're going to have Mars on your North Node, which looks like there's some new, like I said, training, traveling, expansion of your career that's setting up at the end of November. And then Mars will retrograde again, and it's going to oppose Mars. Wow. Be careful with borrowing and lending, with spending, with other people's money. Give and take, what you're investing into, what people are taking from you. Something like that seems to be really, really, really significant. Early January. Okay? And you're going to hear as a Scorpio rising, oh, Pluto's in your 4th house of home and real estate and property, and, you know, Mars is in your 10th house, and you're having some issue with government officials and your land, maybe. You know, you're having some issues with superior, or with, you know, a cop, or maybe, you know, with a parent, maybe. But it's in your money house. So it's going to be about what I sold you and what you gave me, right? Or, you know, what I'm paying you, what you're giving me. It's exchange stuff. So be careful with borrowing and lending. Be careful with exchanges, you know, especially when it comes to like property stuff. If you're buying a property, you really have to suss it out and make sure that it's solid, because I can see that maybe you're going to be thinking about this a little bit more. Changes with home and domestic stuff, kind of spring of 2025. Take it easy around the eclipse, you know, the 2nd, 3rd. That eclipse is going to be really close to your Mercury. And to me, it looks like this is where you're feeling kind of just spent, and you could be overdoing it, overworking. And October 17th, when the full moon comes in Aries, this is where all Scorpio risings need to be really paying attention to their health. You can have some health stuff that can be coming up where you're feeling a little overwhelmed and like majorly exhausted, you know? Anyway, I hope that's helpful for you, Susan, kind of giving you the ins and outs of some of that stuff. Definitely watch some of the videos, listen for when I talk about the Mars retrograde, because it's going to be, you're going to have several Mars returns. So there's going to be several changes going on in how you're kind of navigating some of your business stuff, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you. What's up, Holly? I did your reading. You're just gonna have to kind of scroll back and see where it is. Look for your name on the side. You'll find it. There was like a couple parts where it got kind of choppy, but I'm pretty sure I did your reading all the way through, so it's there. All right, so we've got Jaren, and then we will take Katya. I need your location. I need your time. I need to have all of your information to do your reading. Otherwise, I can't do it. If you're just telling me that information, I can't pull your chart up. All right, so let's pull up Jaren. All right. Gemini rising, sun in Libra, and your moon is in Taurus. Oh, there he is. What's up, Curtis? All right. Lost my job last lunar eclipse in 2023 due to retaliation against me. Okay. That was an eclipse that was in your 6th house. Libra, hidden enemies, becoming, you know, seen, and a change at work. Sounds about right. Found a job after 10 months later, starting during Mercury retrograde. I feel lost in my career and life and have never been in a relationship. Simply look for general. Okay. Never been in a relationship. Chiron in the 1st opposed Saturn and Uranus. Couple things I think about. First of all, this eclipse is much friendlier for air signs, right? I mean, you are a Libra, but I mean, like, if you're a Gemini or an Aquarius rising, this is going to be easier to navigate. This eclipse will not be happening in your 6th house. So, you know, you have Libra on the 6th house cusp. So it means that Scorpio is intercepted. So it is possible, you know, when you have some eclipses in Libra, you want to listen to Taurus rising. But anyway, so this eclipse is going to be very close to your sun, which deals with personal vitality, your goals, your career, right? Sun can be about bosses, father figures, things like that. The sun is connected to your 4th house. So communication, finding time to have hobbies at home, talking to family. Maybe it's about, you know, hanging out with one of your male relatives and, you know, spending more time with them. The South Node already hit your sun. And the eclipse is also close to the South Node. So the South Node in Libra is like where we become too comfortable doing our own thing, right? Or we become too fixated in our hobbies that we've always done, you know? So if you like to come home and play video games, if you like to, you know, watch the same shows, if you like to go to the same, you know, type of music venues, if you like to do the same thing, you're kind of coming out of that. And you're in this cool transit right now, right when you're getting into like your later 30s, where you have something called your nodal return. So it's a hard realignment with destiny. North Node conjunct North Node, South Node conjunct South Node, which means what you're used to doing for fun, what you're used to doing for hobbies, what has become your comfort zone, you're moving away from that. You're going towards your North Node in Aries. In the 11th, it's, you know, going and watching sports with people. It's going and hanging out with friends, joining a network, like going and being like where the people are, rather than kind of keeping to yourself and being alone. So I think that's the incentive. This is ruled by Mars. Mars is going through Cancer right now in your 2nd house. So you might feel like you have to spend a little bit more money to go and socialize and do some stuff. Maybe you got to drive somewhere to do some stuff, or you got to join an online kind of thing. And then Mars will eventually briefly go into Leo and it's going to trine. So I do feel like this is about learning something new, a new hobby, connecting with people, and being a part of a community. And that's going to be beneficial for you. But big things happen when you have your nodal return, because it only happens every 18, 19 years. So you can think back when you're 18 and 19, what was happening in your life then? You know, did you make a whole new group of friends and go to college? Did you, you know, get really into hanging out with certain people, or following certain sports teams, or going to parties, or like socializing? Because that's kind of like Aries in the 11th house, is you go and you socialize even if you do it alone. You would have to see some gnarly stuff happening with Saturn or Uranus for there to be a job change. Saturn's in your 11th. I don't see issues there. Uranus in your 12th. I don't really see anything there right now. But Pluto will go back into Aquarius pretty soon. So you will see that, but it's going to be a number of years before it's in your 10th house. I think at the moment, you know, Jupiter in your 1st house can bring in relationships because it rules your 7th. It can make you more optimistic. It can make you more open-minded, more willing to travel. The fact that Jupiter is in a trine to your sun means that you could date if you wanted to. You'd meet someone. It's also Jupiter trine Venus. You could meet somebody if you wanted to with that transit. You could also focus on your health, improve your habits, you know, find an even better job if that's what you wanted to do. Likely what you'll find is after the retrograde next spring, you know, when Saturn's in your 10th house, whole sign Pisces, you're having retrogrades, and it's squaring your ascendant. Very few people are satisfied with their job when they go through those transits. You know, it's just kind of like, well, I have this, there's a lot of responsibility, there's a boss telling me what to do, you know, this, that, and the other. And you're just kind of going through the motions. I think that I would be more focused on trying to kind of create a life or create schedule where you can feel like, where you can have more fulfillment. You cross the am I changing my job kind of bridge more next year when you have a full moon in Pisces in the spring, when you have Venus retrograde there, Mercury retrograde there, and then you reassess, is this where I'm going to be staying? Okay, I don't think you do that right now. And I think with Venus going through your 6th house, trining Saturn, you're going to be busy. Mars is in your money house. You're making money. You know, it's like, yes, it may not seem the most fulfilling right now, but all of the trines between Mars, Venus, and Saturn in your 2nd, 10th, and 6th house is saying everything's coming together. There's stability here. You got to be leaning into, how do I feel about what I'm doing? Okay, it's a job right now. It may not be what I want to do in the long term, but if you're going to make like a bigger job change, you're going to be doing that in a couple months' time. Not quite yet. So that would be like here. There we go. All right, so when we're getting into this time, March, April, you're going to have a solar eclipse in Aries next year as well. Where is it? There we go. It's technically in your 11th house, so you may not pick up so much, but the transits that are going to be taking place in Pisces, I think, are when you're going to see more. So where is that full moon in Pisces? I guess it's a new moon in Pisces. Oops, there we go. There we go. New moon in Pisces on your midheaven. So in my mind, if you want to make a job change, you're doing it after February 27th, 2025. You want to wait. And that's going to try Mars. So for all you know, you might get a raise. You might, get, like a boost. You might get a new status. That's actually a really good new moon. And then planets will retrograde. It's possible you might lead a team, work with a new department. Like you might see that something's actually going to improve next spring, right? Focus on how you can connect with other people. That's really important with your nodal return. And when it's in Aries, it means even if you have to go by yourself or if you have to go make new friends, you want to go out there and you be doing that. And it's going to feel like more fulfilling. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Sending you lots of good, positive work vibes. All right, and then last but not least, we have, is it Kaja? Am I saying your name correctly? Kudisa. Okay, got it. So that is 4/9/1990. April. Let's see. And that was at 2:57 a.m. There we go. So, looks like we got you here, Aquarius rising, sun in Aries, and your moon is in Libra. So you were born on a full moon in Libra, right around there. All right, so let's talk about the eclipse that's on your moon then, in the 8th house. In theory, the eclipse is friendly for Aquarius risings placements, but when you have a solar eclipse that's during a lunar return, it means that the next month in your life is going to be very busy. All right, so just keep that in the back of your mind. There's going to be a lot of change. Solar eclipse action in Libra, relationships in the 8th house, revolving around what you're learning about relationships, where you're traveling to, things revolving around education. And this is ruled by Venus, and Venus is in your 9th. So where are you spending money on traveling? Where are you spending money on expanding your career? Yeah, it's been a crazy year because there's been eclipses in Aries, and it's been really highlighting the part of your chart that's like, who am I? What am I building? How am I becoming more independent? Who am I outside of relationship to other people? And like, holy cow, dude, you have like a ton of squares in your chart. Sun in opposition to the moon, Mercury in opposition to Pluto, right? Saturn, Neptune, Uranus in opposition to Jupiter, Chiron. North node Mars, square Pluto. Like your whole life is an opposition or a square. I know a couple other Aries who have these same placements from 1990. But the eclipse on your moon is huge. Health relating to pets, mental health, health relating to coworkers, and female relatives. These are all the things you're going to want to watch because, unfortunately, for those of us born in 1989 and 1990, when we have this eclipse come in, it's going to square all of our shit. And that's the one thing that I'm not looking forward to, is that we're going to be like, oh, there's this thing going on and it doesn't feel supported. And so it's going to trigger the Capricorn, which is about work and responsibility, and the Cancer, which is about home and family. And we're going to go, okay, well, you know, is this no longer kind of working? And if we're not feeling like we're getting the support we need, or from relationships or whatever, then that's going to change. Now for you, you're in Aries, so it's your relationship to others changing. But this is in your 8th house, so it's going to be about changes going on with other people's money. Well, the moon rules your 6th house, so it might mean that coworkers are saying, well, I'm moving, or, you know, we're having layoffs, or there's changes going on with my partner's resources, or there's some kind of change going on with banking or investments. So you have to look at your ascendant, you have to look at the aspect to your sun, and then also your moon. So, you know, then you listen to Libra rising, and it's going to be like, well, Libra, you know, you're realizing that you're like sick of being indecisive, and you're going to finally make a decision and you're going to execute it, right? So this is going to activate all of your cardinal squares. But the good thing is, you know, I'd rather have a square than have a T-square. So if you have an actual square, it's making everything move. So it looks like the name of the game is, what can I learn? Where can I travel? How can I learn more about finances? How can I practice more when it comes to vulnerability and intimacy? How can I align with other people to kind of get clear insight or some kind of support in some way, shape, or form? That's how I see it. And in my mind, Chiron on your sun, Saturn in your 1st, North Node in Aries, Mars retrograde in your 7th, you know? Like there is like a sense of like really still kind of trying to define who you are outside of other people. And I would be very, very, very aware that this eclipse is going to kick off what could be some very significant changes in relationships for you, romantic or, you know, business partnerships, financial partnerships. And then Mars is going to turn retrograde in your 7th house at the end of the year, opposed Pluto. To me, that looks like there's going to be a back and forth you're going to be doing with another person, and it's going to probably come off the backs of whatever is going to be kind of planted here. Watch. The fact that that's your moon, where do you currently live right now? I'll just I can do it from your home, but look at your lunar return, watch. Okay, so your lunar return's on the 2nd. So it gives me Capricorn rising, moon, Mercury, sun in the 9th. So traveling, career change, some shift revolving around relationship change, you know, changing something about your business stuff. Square Mars, it affects partners. Square the ascendant, it affects you. Oppose Chiron, it's about breaking out in some way. Let's see. Still the same. It's not that different. It's your natal rising with the same placements in the 8th house. And Uranus is in the 3rd. So my boyfriend just got diagnosed with cancer, and my boss just went on. Okay, all right, hold on a second here. This is a really good learning opportunity. I know we don't have as many people, but it's okay. First of all, I'm sorry to hear that. That's difficult. Libra is partners, right? 8th house is about crisis, trauma, death, things that could be life-threatening. 11 is when something is progressed. So we look at how the eclipse is in the 8th house, crisis of partner in some situation where some situation is speeding up and it's in opposition to you. Health of partners is going to be more a combination of when transits go through Leo, or the sun in your case, where Chiron is. And also, it's going to be connected to the 12th house. It's 6 houses away from the 7th, where you have Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus. So you were going to have partners that you were going to potentially either deal with losing or taking care of because they were dealing with health issues. It's in your chart. And then Chiron on your sun, where that's been a theme basically since the eclipse in the spring. I'm sorry. South Node moon eclipse does make me feel like it's bringing up this harsh reality that's like, okay, you know, we're dealing with something health-wise. 8th house moon, there's always some kind of karma there. It's either for women, I mean, if it's Libra, it can be partners, but for men, you know, it can represent their wife. And I've seen a lot of this where I'm like, 8th house moon, you know, they end up having a cancer diagnosis, a brain issue, breast cancer, you know, something like that. And your moon squares everything and opposes you. So there's a lesson here. The next month looks like it's going to be very active, and there can be some acceleration of realizing that he's sick, but also there is this sense of you being like, okay, I'm jumping in and I'm helping in some way, right? Which you're good at if you got Jupiter and Chiron there. I'd watch the Mars retrograde because that can affect their health and vitality. And so you'll see that kind of December into about February of next year, where it will retrograde, oppose Pluto in your first house, right? That's a lot. I'm sorry to hear that you're dealing with that, and definitely keep us updated on all of that stuff. Quite a chart you have there with all those oppositions, and Pluto on your midheaven makes me feel like there are a lot of extreme situations where, you know, it's like dealing with death or dealing with grief or working through something, helping people heal. You know, there's something that you're learning in that process there. You're welcome. Thanks for making it. I'm glad we didn't get a chance to miss you. Hopefully, I'll save your info. So if you come back again, I'm always happy to give you some insight and help you. Well, yeah, it's lit. It is very lit. So, of course, I'm glad to help. Well, guys, that was fun. I hope that was able to give you some insight into the eclipses. Even for those of you guys who I couldn't talk to, I appreciate you just hanging out and listening, and for you guys liking and sharing and subscribing. Like I said, tons of resources on my channel about the eclipse. We're going to talk about it more on Sunday, but it's not too late to get my eclipse webinar. So check out my links below. Go to beyondtheveiltarot.com. You can pick up that webinar and see lots of info. You can also book a reading or a report with me. I will be back here on Sunday. We're going to talk all about the week ahead and what's coming up. And I'm wishing you guys a very happy weekend. I hope you guys have fun, be safe, and enjoy the eclipse that's coming up. And I will catch you guys back here next week for live tarot. Until next time, you guys take care. I'll see you soon.